In Kumogakure after adopting Hinata Hyuga. Chapter 1: The plan to kidnap Hinata Hyuga. Konoha had been established for 48 years now. Although the Third Shinobi World War had recently ended, roughly 2 years ago, the small friction between the hidden forces in the shadows still continued. This was especially so for the Land of Fire and the Land of Lightning. However, even if one of the Sannin suffers from hemophobia and the other travels around the world, Konoha still has Orochimaru and the new Fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Konoha possesses a terrifying combat power, capable of repelling the attacks of multiple other villages, coupled with the amazing scouting capabilities of the Hyuga clan's Byakugan. The cloud could never gain any ground on them. However, on October 13th, 3 days after the birth of the original protagonist Uzumaki Naruto, a piece of news surprised the Raikage. The Fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, had died. Ha ha ha. Hachiro. B. Have you heard? The Golden Glitterman is dead. Now, Konoha's only Kage-level ninja is the old man Sarutobi Hiruzen and that disgusting snake Orochimaru. In the Raikage's office, A, who had inherited the position of Raikage 5 years ago, was very excited. He felt like the stars were out during the day. He shouted. Right now is the best opportunity we will ever have to attack Konoha, rally the troops. Opposite the Fourth Raikage, 2 men were standing. One was Killer B, well known as A, Perfect Jinchuriki, humming a weird rap as he said angrily. Ah shit Bagayalu, I'm still here, I can't go to the battlefield. Since the death of the Third Raikage, known as the strongest of all Raikage, during the Third Ninja War, I had strictly forbid his brother B from going to the battlefield, restricting him inside the village. The teenager next to Killer B was younger, only 15 years old, with a silver spiky hairstyle from the Raiden clan. The young man with a handsome face and impressive body said, Calm down, cousin, even though the Fourth Hokage has died, there's still Orochimaru and those Uchiha. They're the nemesis of tailed beasts for a reason. It's better not to start a total war rashly. Hachiro Raiden, this was his name. The strongest clan within the confines of the Cloud Shinobi village. The cousin of the Fourth Raikage AI. In the Third Shinobi World War, he shined on the battlefield at the age of 12 years old. Now 15 years old, his lightning style is arguably the best in the world. His authority was second in the village just behind his cousin. When the Fourth Raikage heard his opinion, he frowned, and felt that he was getting himself worked up. Recently, the Uchiha had gave rise to a genius called Shursui of the Body Flicker, who was very talented. It was true, he couldn't have the cloud suffering because of a sudden impulse. Then, how do you think we can reap some benefits from this opportunity? The Fourth Raikage asked. Isn't the Byakugan giving you a headache? How about we try and create some tension between the Hyuga clan and the village? Hachiro smiled. Oh. What do you have in mind? The Fourth Raikage became interested. Over to the side of the office, his assistant Mabui and the other advisors couldn't help but prick their ears. In the original, the head ninja of Kumogakure tried to take Hinata Hyuga from the Leaf Village under the guise of an alliance. Unfortunately, Hyuga Hayashi, her father, ended up finding the intruder before he could make a quick escape and killed him. Afterwards, the Cloud demanded for the corpse of Hyuga Hayashi, claiming he killed their representative unjustly or they would be forced to go to war. The Cloud's demands were satisfied, although, in reality the body they thought to be Hayashi's was actually his brother Hisashi's. Hachiro changed the plan slightly, not enough to make a big difference but a difference, nonetheless. He moved the event forward 3 years earlier and changed the target they were going to demand for to Hinata Hyuga. It didn't really matter if it didn't succeed or not, but whether Konoha's higher management would harm their relationship with their own clans for the sake of their so-called peace. Worthy of the title Shinobi, so very vicious, yeah. Killer B hummed in praise. Or maybe ridicule. Hachiro-sama, is this plan feasible? The Raikage secretary, Mabui, frowned. Long story short, we ask a sick shinobi to attempt to kidnap the recently born daughter of the Hyuga clan's main family, and if in the event we are discovered, we threaten them with war and take the Hyuga clan's newborn heir. It would be nice if the Hokage didn't try to settle accounts but getting him to take the initiative to hand the child over. Isn't that impossible? Tutai also said, Hachiro-sama, I also think that the likelihood of this plan succeeding. Everyone present was well aware of his combat strength, but no one felt that this plan would really work. The reason was rather simple: if the other shinobi villages tried to play this kind of trick with them, then the Cloud are bound to fight back. If the opponent really beat one of their own up and asked Kumogakure to hand over someone from their clans, nearly everyone in Kumogakure would be out for blood. Ha ha ha. You are looking straight past the old man Hiruzen's true nature. He's hard on the inside and soft on the outside. Hachiro laughed aloud. Anyway, it's not like there is anything to lose, so leave it to me and I promise I'll make a mess of Konoha. After Fourth Raikage's rough fingers clicked on the desk several times, he nodded and said, "As long as you don't do anything stupid, you shouldn't be captured. I'll leave sowing discord to you. Also, on your way out, buy me a plate of wagashi from Atami, you've got me hungry." After leaving the Raikage's office, Hachiro looked at the huge village from above. The environment and climate of the Land of Lightning was just as wild as some countries near the equator, which was not the best conditions for the growth of crops. But precisely because of this harsh environment, the ninja developed straightforward fighting styles. Although the environment isn't the best out there, I'd rather this place over Konoha any day. Spending all day training without worry is the best. Hachiro took a deep breath as he stretched lazily. 15 years ago, he had suddenly woke up in Kumogakure. Unlike in most fanfictions he had read where the protagonist ended up in Konoha, as a shinobi from the Uchiha or Senju clans. The Lightning God System. Host: Hachiro Raiden. First template: Enel, unlocking degree, 100%. Second template: Misaka Mikoto, unlocking rate, 1.2%. Immediately, Hachiro turned on his own cheat, the Lightning God System, and nodded. Well, with his current strength, he could do nearly whatever he wanted in Konoha as long as he didn't cross paths with the Hokage. If I succeed in kidnapping Hinata from Konoha, the plot is likely to change by quite a lot. His lips curled up slightly. This will be interesting. Note: I changed the MC's clan name to Raiden from Yue. Not sure if I should have ___/. Rewritten. Chapter 2, You could be the next Raikage, brother-in-law. Brother-in-law, I heard that we're going to sign an alliance agreement with Konoha. Are we really? Standing on top of a house on the south side of the village, Atsui, who was only 5 years old, asked curiously. He wasn't really all that noteworthy. But that all changes once you mention his sister's name. Samui. In the original book, she is one of those few rivals Tsunade has when it comes to comparing knockers. Never mind, back on topic. It's true. We're also going to try instigate some internal conflict, if we can. Hachiro smiled, and after making sure no one else was nearby, he gave a quick rundown on his mission. Atsui revealed a surprised expression. Ah. Brother-in-law, do you think the Hokage will really back down and try to negotiate? Threatening them with war is quite severe. Even though Samui was only 15 years old, right now, she was still a pleasant sight for the eyes. Actually, she and Hachiro were well acquainted as they had been placed on the same team as Genin. During the Shinobi War, despite only being a 12-year-old, he had led and commanded a company of shinobi and revealed his ability to flexibly use strategies. He even tried to be innovative and tap into the well of knowledge, called his past life. It was one of the reasons he gained so much notoriety during the war. It was a pity that the final battle between the two countries had taken place close to the Land of Fire, causing his uncle, the Third Raikage's death. Hachiro looked around Shinobi Village as he threw an arm around Samui and said emotionally, "Kumogakure is the best village ever." Unlike the darker tan skin of most people in the village, Samui shared a softer pastel color that people from other villages possessed. After failing in her struggle for freedom, she simply gave up and let him hang his arm on her. After the end of the Third Shinobi War, she basically accepted their relationship. Atsui just liked playing pranks, and calling him brother-in-law made him get extra excited. They saw a few people wandering about the streets below them, and buying from food stalls. The living conditions in the Land of Lightning were not as good as that of Konoha, where most tourists and refugees gathered. The Land of Fire occupied the most fertile land in the whole ninja war. It wasn't an opinion but a fact. Although the Cloud didn't have the best, it wasn't the worst either. The political situation in the Cloud was very different from the mess led by Hiruzen Sarutobi. The politics in Kumogakure was much cleaner and straightforward. It was probably what helped them develop two perfect Jinchurikis, Killer Bee and Yujito. There was no one wanting to stab you in the back at a moment's notice, nor was there anyone trying to weaken the other's faction, so to speak. In the cloud, strength was what dictated politics. So far they hadn't had any declining old men holding onto authority as if it was their one and only purpose in life, so it wasn't all that bad. To Konoha, if they succeeded in the kidnapping, the Cloud Shinobi were simply playing a dirty game and pushing their luck. But from their own perspective it was purely for the village. You can't really fault them for that. What's more, his cousin Fourth Raikage, although he was impulsive and irritable, he doesn't unreasonably push his views on others or try to manipulate them. At the very least, as long as the interests of the village aren't in danger, then he is rather lenient. This is also why Hachiro never insisted on defecting and joining the Leaf. On one hand, he was afraid of attracting the attention of a certain sociopath whose methods often involve enslaving someone with a seal, and if that doesn't work, cut off their head. In the past, White Fang committed suicide due to rumors, and in the future, Uchiha Shirsue committed suicide due to conflicts between the family and the villagers. It's all thanks to brother-in-law's hard work in the Shinobi War. Now the Land of Frost is a subject of Kumogakure. Brother-in-law could be the next Raikage. Atsui harped in with some flattery. Oh, I don't have much interest in being Raikage. It only really involves sitting in an office doing paperwork. Hachiro let out a faint chuckle. He's interested in becoming a strong shinobi, no doubt, but the position of Raikage. Fighting is more his thing. While saying this, he secretly gave Atsui a meaningful stare. Atsui gave a knowing grin and exclaimed, "Ah. Oops, I haven't finished my homework for school tomorrow. Brother-in-law, take care of my sister for me. I'm leaving." After finishing his speech, he dived off the roof and sprinted off into the distance with a maniacal laugh. He left their field of vision within a matter of moments. Hachiro smiled brightly, and then pulled Samui into his arms. "Oh well, looks like it's only going to be you accompanying me to Konoha. Don't think too hard about the mission and just relax." Samui clawed at him angrily. He smiled even more, grabbed her chin before snaking his way inside. So sweet. 1 minute later he picked up Princess Samui's soft waist and jumped off the roof and carrying her inside the house. The Land of Fire, the village hidden in the leaves. The fourth Hokage Minato Namikaze died under the assault of the Nine-Tails Fox. Before the election of fifth Hokage, the third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi, who had abdicated by choice, returned to the position of Hokage, below one and above all others. Konoha, the administration building, in the meeting room for the highest personnel. Hiruzen Sarutobi asked his 3 old teammates that had tasted the authority of the highest level for over half a century. "I didn't expect Kumogakure to send us an invitation to an alliance at this time, but I can't really think of a good reason to reject them. What do you think?" Nowadays, Konoha has only one publicly known Kage-level ninja roaming inside the village, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Aside from Danzo Shimura, they had Kohara Udatane and Hamura Mitokado who were close to Kage level. These 4 people were the reason the inheritance of Hashirama and Tobirama Senju had fallen. Note, I know Chinese authors like titles like Invincible and all, but do you think I should go back and change it to one of the strongest shinobi, or something similar? Maybe Thunder God, Lightning God, something along those lines. Half rewritten. Chapter 3, Kumogakure's Peak, Konohagakure's Decline. In terms of strength, the third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi was much weaker than the second, Tobirama Senju. There was no point in even comparing him to Hashirama Senju, the one known as the God of Shinobi. But he survived and held onto the title for Hokage much longer than every else could. During his reign, Konoha held at least 60% of all geniuses from around the ninja world. Tsukumo Hatake, Jiraiya, Tsunade, Orochimaru, Minato Namikaze, Uchiha Shirsue, Uchiha Itachi. However, all these geniuses ended up leaving the village, defecting, or were forced to their deaths. They practically did the impossible, losing with an almost perfect hand. After receiving the letter inviting Konoha into an alliance with Kumogakure, the third Hokage wanted opinions. The other 3 stared at him silently. Even Danzo, who represented the more radical and aggressive shinobi in the village, did not hold any objections to this alliance. All of them were well aware that Kumo and Konoha's strength did not differ by much. Although the strongest Raikage had fallen, his son the new Raikage was also a Kage-level ninja. There was also Hachiro Raiden, who established himself as the ninja with the strongest lightning style in the Third Ninja War. Secondly, there was two perfect Jinchuriki, Killer Bee and Yujito. In the whole village, right now only Hiruzen Sarutobi and Orochimaru was at Kaga level. Danzo hasn't got his transplants yet. Right now, while Konoha was at its weakest, Kumo had reached a new peak. Fortunately, the Leaf hadn't been severely affected by Hiruzen's poor management. Although it didn't really matter much as Danzo had helped in eliminating the Senju for him. However, the Yamanaka, Nara, Inuzuka, Aburame and Akimichi were still as strong as ever. Additionally, the Uchiha extermination hadn't took place yet. They also had the Hyuga clan's Byakugan that had foiled Kumo's plans more than a few times during the war. Therefore, the gap between the two villages not too large. In that case, I'll agree to this invitation. Announce to the village that early next year the signing ceremony of the alliance between Kumogakure and Konigakure will be officially held. Konoha's 49th year, January 1st. Hachiro, Raiden and Sarutobi Hiruzen stood on the top floor of the Hokage's residence. In the presence of tens of thousands of Konoha village residents below, they shook hands to indicate that the alliance between the two villages was officially reached. In the new year, coupled with the double joy of the alliance, the cheers of the whole village boiled to a new peak. What's the matter, Shikaku? The era of peace is coming, are you unhappy? Suddenly, among the many high-level ninjas standing behind the two, Yamanaka Inoichi found out that his friend Nara Shikaku had a suspicious expression and couldn't help but whisper. He shook his head and said, "No, I just don't see why the Cloud Shinobi want to ask for an alliance just after the Fourth Hokage has passed away. Based on the Raikage's personality, isn't he more likely to start a war? The Nara family has been the Hokage's advisors for generations for a good reason. Even among his clan, Shikaku was intelligent. In his opinion, this peace came too suddenly. The Land of Lightning as a whole was a militant country. With the way they usually did things, they would have tried to launch an attack before they could formulate a proper plan to go forward after the Fourth's death. And they didn't request anything that was majorly unfavorable for Konoha. This was totally not in line with their usual aggressive behavior. But when he saw how happy the Hokage was, he struggled about whether he should bring some glaring issues with the agreement to light. On the day of the signing of the alliance agreement, Third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen announced that the entire village would throw a celebration. Among the Cloud Shinobi, Hachiro, Samui, Darui, and the other shinobi accompanying them joined in on the party. In Konoha, only one clan leader did not participate. At the residence of the Hyuga clan's leader. Because the eldest daughter of Patriarch Hyuga Hayashi was just 3 months old, he had to stay home with his wife. After a few hours, everyone returned to the high-end hotel arranged for them by Sarutobi Hiruzen. But no one slept peacefully, and everyone sat down on the Japanese floor mat with solemn expressions. "Tadashi, please," Hachiro said with a calm expression. "Yes." A terminally ill jonin who wouldn't be able to survive more than a month or two bowed his head and promised to complete his mission. He jumped out of the hotel's window and disappeared under the moonlight of Konoha. About half an hour later, a dark shadow slipped out of the patriarch's residence of the Hyuga clan. In his right hand, he was still carefully holding a sleeping baby. The baby was Hyuga Hinata, who was just born a few months ago. Crunch. Suddenly, Tadashi stepped on a dead leaf scattered on the ground and made a crisp sound. "Who's there?" Hyuga Hayashi rushed to where the sound originated from and saw the man in black and his daughter, who was in the process of being kidnapped. His face suddenly changed. He charged ahead as fast as he could and attempted to ruthlessly strike towards the intruder's heart. Pouch. Gentle fist hit the opponent's abdomen and severely damaged the intruder's internal organs. That's it. Hyuga Hayashi himself was taken aback. If someone dared to risk their lives intruding on the Hyuga clan's residences, they should at least have some level of competence. Before he could think more in depth about the suspicious situation, he reached out and gently lifted his unconscious daughter into his arms. Hayashi held his daughter in his right hand and pulled off the mask on the intruder's face with his left hand. The Cloud Shinobi forehead protector was what greeted him to his shock. "Patriarch, what happened?" The sound of the battle attracted the guards' attention. In a matter of seconds, several guards hurried over. When they saw the ninja wearing the Cloud Shinobi's forehead protector, they couldn't help but panic. All of them were dumbfounded and didn't know what to do. "Immediately, report this to the Hokage." Hyuga Hayashi gritted his teeth, and said these words in anger. He also realized that he had fallen into Kumogakure's scheme. In less than 10 minutes the three elders, clan heads, and many other members of the civilian council gathered in the Hokage's office. The deathly and depressing silence contrasted with the joyful atmosphere around the village earlier. After checking Tadashi's body in the middle of the office, Narashikaku frowned and said, "Hokage-sama, obviously Kumogakure's request for an alliance with us is just a cover. Their true purpose is the blood of the Hyuga clan." Uchiha Fugaku also said, "In the Third Ninja War, the Byakugan has caused a lot of trouble for the Cloud Shinobi. Their tactics revolve around striking as fast as possible and as hard as possible. These tactics don't work nearly as well when the enemy knows where you're going to hit, so they must be looking for a way to get vengeance." Hayashi's anger was visible for all to see as he said, "Hokage-sama, please bring justice to my Hyuga clan." Sarutobi Hiruzen took a deep breath into his pipe, and released a cloud of smoke, making a few people present frown, but he didn't dare to say anything for certain. Shinosuke, immediately notify the Kumogakure's envoy, and ask them to give Konoha an explanation. After a short silence, Sarutobi Hiruzen gave orders to his eldest son. Originally, he was still immersed in the joy of truce with Cloud Shinobi Village. However, reality cruelly hit him hard. In less than 5 minutes, 14 members of the Cloud Shinobi's delegation led by Hachiro rushed to the Hokage's office. Just as Hayashi was ready to interrogate the masterminds, a shinobi from the cloud behind Hachiro saw the body of Tadashi on the ground. Except for Samui and Darui, the other members of the envoy burst into tears. They knelt down beside Tadashi's corpse, crying bitterly and shouting, "No! Tadashi! What happened? Why did you die? Who was it? Who killed you? Tadashi! Tadashi! You've worked hard for our village, how did you end up like this? Asshole! Who dares to kill one of our brothers? We must make him pay for it. Yes, you're right, we must back report this to Lord Raikage immediately." The people from Konoha were stunned by the performance of these Cloud Shinobi. Lightning rumbled in the sky. It was as if their resolve touched even the clouds above them. Rumble. The eyes of everyone glided over towards Hachiro's body. Thunder was twisting and wrapping around his body as a violent air pressure was created. Electric arcs passed around the room, making his anger known. "Hokage-sama, Kumogakure has sincerely came with the intent of entering an alliance with your village, but now my subordinates have been so brutally murdered in Konoha. What is going on? I need an explanation." He stared straight at Sarutobi Hiruzen, his hands were clenched and his whole body exuded killing intent. Suddenly, all the members of Konoha realized that they had become the villains. 5 seconds later, everyone uncontrollably cursed at anyone with any relation to Kumo in their minds. This bastard is branding us as villains. Chapter 4, Hard on the inside, soft on the outside. What a joke. After reacting, Hyuga Hayashi was the first to burst in anger. "It's clear that you, Cloud Shinobi, under the guise of an alliance, sneaked into the Hyuga clan's residences and wanted to kidnap my daughter. After I found out, you actually tried framing me in Konoha." Feeling the chakra emitting from Hachiro's body, he was certain this ninja was at the Kage level. However, his rationality was being devoured by his anger. No matter how strong the enemy was, he wasn't just about to let people mistake him for a pushover. "Yes, Hachiro Raiden, you're behaving unreasonably." Shikaku, who had a calm personality, couldn't help but say. His son was just 3 months old, and he could understand Hyuga Hayashi's feelings to an extent. "What are you talking about? Our people were killed, and you want to put charges on us?" A jonin from Kumo shouted angrily. "Don't tell me Konoha wants to go to war again." Hyuga Hayashi was furious, just as he was about to say, "Who is afraid of whom?" Unexpectedly, Udatane Koharu's wrinkled old face shouted in horror. "Please don't get us wrong. Konoha has no intention of going to war with Kumogakure." As soon as this was said, Hyuga Hayashi, Uchiha Fugaku and others looked at Udatane Koharu in slight disbelief and anger. This weak, old woman who does nothing but idly sit on the advisory board because she was lucky enough to be a disciple of the second Hokage, and fights tooth and nail with them for her interests so easily conceded. She was talking to these Cloud Shinobi so humbly and didn't even let them get a chance to say anything. Mito Kato Hamura hurriedly added, Today Konoha and Kumo have just formed an alliance. It's a day meant for celebration, there's no need to be so angry. Seeing the usually high-pitched old shrew acting with such humility, don't talk about Fugaku and Hayashi. The normally good-tempered Yamanakas and Akimichis were all looking irritated. You old vixen, if you're so easily intimidated, just do everyone a favor and retire already. How about we both take a step back and play it off as if nothing happened? As if that wasn't enough for the clan leaders, Danzo, the elder with a reputation for being ruthless and cutting down everything that got in his way, tried to take a step back as well. Had it not been for the presence of the civilian council, Hayashi would have liked to rush over and slap the old man. My daughter was almost kidnapped. You expect me to let this go so easily? Oh, Konoha sure is a lawful village, one of my brothers have died and you expect me to drop it as if he was worth nothing. Hachiro did not restrain the lightning building up around his body at all, and showed off its ferocity as a deterrence. Could it be you leaf shinobi think we will let you trample all over us? Except for Konoha's 3 elders, the rest wanted to laugh at the absurdity of what they were hearing. Us? Bullying you? Anyone at the age of 4 can easily see what you're playing at. You spectacularly failed in kidnapping a newborn child and now you want us to apologize to you. Do you even know what shame is? Then, what does Mr. Hachiro Raiden want? Sarutobi Hiruzen said abruptly. Hokage-sama. All of a sudden, Hyuga Hayashi, Uchiha Fugaku, Narashikaku and others looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen with disbelief evident in their eyes. Forget the other 3 old elders. But you are the Hokage. Now the enemy villages are brazenly running around our village and destroying things, and you're apologizing for being a bad host to them. You still want to negotiate when the other party has clearly committed crimes against us. Don't talk about the shinobi from Konoha, even the Cloud Shinobi including Samui, who he had warned ahead of time, was surprised. They all showed ghastly expressions one after another. Negotiate? Really? The third Hokage, who is called the strongest Hokage in history, and the professor, Konoha was humiliated, and yet you can still endure and take a step back. If the Raikage was in your place, he would have made the aggressor regret being born in the first place. At this time, when Samui and the others recalled Hachiro's evaluation of Sarutobi Hiruzen and the Konoha elders. Hard on the inside, soft on the outside. Sure enough, that seems pretty accurate. Hand over the daughter of Patriarch Hayashi. Hachiro showed one of them a smile from the land of lightning, and said in a tone that left no room for negotiation. We'll give Konoha a night to think about it. When we leave tomorrow morning, the daughter of the Hyuga better be leaving with us. If your village disagrees, not only will the alliance agreement be annulled, we will report back to Lord Raikage and officially launch an all-out war between Kumo and Konoha. While speaking, he motioned to Darui. Darui nodded, and slugged Tashida onto his back and gave his corpse a piggyback. Hachiro turned around and led the crowd of shinobi he arrived with to leave in strides. Turning to face Sarutobi Hiruzen, he said, Hokage-sama, please consider it carefully. Bang. The moment the door closed, Hyuga Hayashi said to Sarutobi Hiruzen with as much vigor as he could muster. Hokage-sama, my Hyuga clan is willing to take the lead. We will face Cloud Shinobi head-on. Giving his newly born daughter to the shinobi from the Cloud would not only result in the loss of a pair of Byakugan but his blood. They had trampled on the dignity of the Hyuga clan and his position as patriarch. However, ignoring his fighting spirit and declaration, Danzo spoke quietly to Hiruzen, who was smoking his old pipe again. Hiruzen, it is too risky to start an all-out war with the Cloud Shinobi right now. Danzo, you. Hayashi felt as if his anger was going to lead him to make some impulsive but very desirable decisions. But before he could do so, Koharu and Hamura gave their views. Yes, Hiruzen, we have to proceed with Konoha's interests in mind. Tobirama-sensei handed Konoha over to our hands, we must protect it. They have been close friends for over half a century, so they had general idea of Hiruzen's personality and thoughts. Sure enough, when Sarutobi Hiruzen removed the pipe from his mouth, he still looked at Hyuga Hayashi kindly, but his tone seemed to be irrefutable. Hayashi, everything is for Konoha, the village will remember Hyuga's sacrifice. As soon as he finished his sentence, Hayashi could feel his knees go weak as he staggered back and almost fell down. The other participants in the meeting room didn't say a thing, knowing that it would be impossible to change the final verdict. Note, sometimes I question my actions. Actions like, why am I eating sweets that I don't even like? Isn't the whole point of their existence the fact that they taste nice? No. Chapter 5, from this moment on, she will be Hinata Raiden. Early the next morning, when Hachiro led the Cloud Shinobi to the main gate of Konoha, he saw Hyuga Hayashi and the other clan leaders from the Hokage's office last night. It seemed like they had been waiting for a while. In the Hyuga clan leader's arms, a baby wrapped in lightweight cotton lay. Hachiro couldn't help but smile. It went exactly as he planned it to. Although it took place 3 years earlier, the recent losses Konoha had incurred seemed to only make his job easier. Thank you, Patriarch Hayashi, I will make sure to take good care of Hinata for you. Hachiro smiled and stretched out his right hand, motioning to Hayashi to hand over the baby. I'm Hyuga Hisashi, my brother passed out when he went home last night. He's currently still in a hospital bed. Hyuga Hisashi said indifferently. Hachiro was taken back, and then noticed that the other party had a bandage on his forehead, which was probably to cover the seal of caged bird. Haha, sorry about that, Hisashi. He gave a chuckle, trying to change the subject quickly. He stretched out his hands to fish Hyuga Hinata into his arms. However, he whispered in the ear of the shinobi in front of him. You should thank me for saving your life. Hearing this, Hyuga Hisashi frowned. What does this guy mean? You abducted my niece, and now you're going on about how you saved me. Of course, Hyuga Hisashi didn't know, the original plan brewed in Kumogakure ended in his death. And now, thanks to Hachiro making some changes, he avoided that outcome at least temporarily. Mr. Hachiro Raiden, Kumogakure and Konohagakure are still allies, right? Sarutobi Hiruzen stepped out and asked. Hey. Suddenly someone sneered. This was the highest combat power in Konoha aside from the Hokage, Orochimaru. To be honest, when Sarutobi Hiruzen decided to make Minato the fourth Hokage, the relationship between the teacher and the apprentice became no better than that of acquaintances. And today, after coming out of the laboratory for a long time, he saw his distressed teacher humbly apologize and take a few loses head on while smiling. Orochimaru couldn't help feeling extremely amused. You are getting old, Sarutobi. Orochimaru said to himself, his eyes full of contempt. Of course, Kumo and Konoha will be the closest of allies in the future. Hachiro gently held onto Hinata with both hands. That's good, that's good. Sarutobi Hiruzen's joyful smile made Uchiha Fugaku, Narashikaku, and others feel nauseous. Their own children had all been born around the same time and were still children. They couldn't help but worry if their children was the target. Would they have to hand them over just because the Hokage wanted to keep some piece of paper that guaranteed peaceful times? Although Minato Namikaze had died, they were still here. So why couldn't they go to war? Unfortunately, no matter how angry they felt, they didn't dare make their thoughts known. From now on, she will be Raiden Hinata. Before leaving, the words he left made the heart of the girl's uncle, Hisashi, tremble. While holding back his anger, Hisashi secretly sighed, thinking that it's fortunate that his brother was not here. Otherwise he might have lost all rationality and attacked. This has been so boring. If that's it, I'm leaving. Orochimaru didn't want to stay here anymore, definitely not when that old fool was still there. He shook his head and left. As the Kumo delegation was leaving, Hachiro handed a piece of paper to a leaf genin before whispering some words in his ear. The genin dashed off towards Konoha with a speed befitting a chunin. On the way back to his research room, Orochimaru opened a note with only 7 words written on it. After defecting, make sure to contact us. This little girl is very cute, no wonder. Fuck. She's urinating. Samui, come and change her diaper. A week later, in Kumogakure. Samui took the diaper she had just bought from the store, and said with an angry face. Why did you bring her home? Doesn't the village have an orphanage dedicated to war orphans? What do you think I am, a babysitter? This is the Hyuga princess, she's also the only one with a pure Byakugan right now. Hachiro held his nose. Although, in a few years her younger sister Hanabi will also have one. Knock. Knock. At this moment, Atsui's weary voice rang from outside. Brother-in-law. Mr. Raikage has sent someone to urge you several times just now, asking you to file a report and head to his office as soon as possible. Well, got to go. Make sure to change her diaper for me. Hachiro put Hinata into Samui F-class tankers and walked out quickly, grabbing Atsui by the ear and running off towards the Raikage's office. Idiot. You have to be careful not to interrupt us again. I didn't go in. Brother-in-law, stop, it hurts. Atsui wanted to cry but had no tears. Wow. Hinata, who was in the middle of napping, felt a familiar softness, and subconsciously began to look for milk. Ah. Samui almost threw Hinata in surprise. While blushing, she shouted. Hey, stop, I'll get you milk right away, don't, oh. 10 minutes later in the Raikage's office. Hachiro, what's going on? Why did you take a baby girl who was just born? You could threaten them for Hyuga Hayashi's life, or ask Konoha to bring out a pair of Byakugan. Originally, when he heard that the Kumo delegation he had sent to Konoha had completed its mission, he was quite happy. But then he heard that they had brought back a little girl who was just born less than a few months ago. The Fourth Raikage couldn't figure out which part of this mission his cousin failed to understand. Does he have some hobby he doesn't want to talk about? Hey, cousin, when that little girl grows up, who do you think she will recognize as her father? Me or Hayashi? Hachiro sat down on the sofa in the office and asked the Fourth Raikage with his legs up on the desk in front of him. Hinata is the child brought back by the Hachiro. Mabui whispered beside him. Ah, if you raise her, she should still listen to you. Fourth Raikage frowned for a while and replied. Then if I plant her inside the Hokage's office when she grows up, who do you think would benefit? Hachiro chuckled and asked again. In an instant, the expressions of everyone inside the office changed. Note, oof, my dumbass said Orochimaru had defected in one of the earlier chapters. Turns out he hadn't, lol. I've just went back and edited it. Per 6, Konoha is only getting weaker. The Raikage's lips twitched. The clan calls me crazy, but you're on the next level. Even Tutai, who had acted as an advisor for 2 generations of Raikage, couldn't help but marvel at the brazen and ridiculous plan the young man had come up with, although he was still a little dubious. I hadn't thought about this from such a bold perspective before. It's true that we would be able to benefit the most, but wouldn't it be too difficult? Fourth Raikage softly rubbed his chin. And either way, it will take at least 10 years for the girl to grow. By then Konoha might have another Kage-level ninja. With that said, the Fourth Raikage still seemed excited enough. He was going back to his impulsive style of thinking again, and eagerly said. How about we attack them before that? Lord Raikage, although Konoha's only Kage-level ninja are the Third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen and Orochimaru. You're ignoring the threat of the other ninja. The clans in particular are extremely powerful. Tutai discouraged. In addition, the Uchiha's Sharingan will be a major hindrance for our Jinchuriki. Even if our strength is superior to them, the gap is not big enough to ensure we don't lose anyone while dealing damage to Konoha. Tisk. Fourth Raikage gritted his teeth, obviously displeased, but had to admit that Tutai was right. The clans in Konogakure were much more numerous than in Kumo. Even if their team met. Cough. Hiruzen and Danzo tried a little too hard to destroy them, there was still many that remained. Don't worry, cousin, Konoha is only going to get weaker and weaker in the future. Oh. What makes you so sure? Suddenly, Fourth Raikage and others in the office looked at Hachiro with questioning eyes. After Hashirama's and Tobirama's reign back in the early stages of the Second Shinobi War, Konoha's White Fang and Sannin were alive and active around when Hiruzen first took over. Konoha was definitely at its weakest, no questions asked. How could it get any weaker? The Third Hokage's death, but how would that come about? Orochimaru's betrayal? Yeah, right. That's too good to be true. Their teacher and student after all. It would be hard to destroy such a close relationship. Hachiro smiled without giving an answer. If he hadn't been aware of the original anime, there is no way he would be so confident. Soon, Sarutobi Hiruzen will return to the position of Hokage. Orochimaru will break off his relationship with Konoha and defect. And a few years later, Konoha's strongest clan, the Uchiha, will be massacred. That leaves Sarutobi as the only problem, but considering he was an old man with one foot in the grave, they could hopefully just throw a sea of shinobi at him and hopefully drown him alive. Konoha's strength at that time will be ranked second among the shinobi villages at best. And with Kumo occupying the position as the strongest among the 5 major shinobi villages, there would be no better time to strike. And on that note, the plot will start around this time. A few days later. Kumogakure, Hyuga clan land. On the hospital bed, Hyuga Hayashi, who had fallen into a coma, finally woke up. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw Hisashi kneeling down and sitting beside him. He had just gotten home last night and was about to go see his daughter. The thought of sending her to an enemy village thousands of miles away made his heart ache. There was also Sarutobi Hiruzen's righteous remarks about sacrificing for Konoha. He was so agitated that he passed out on the spot. Hisashi. Hyuga Hayashi whispered. That man is gone. Hyuga Hisashi lowered his head in response. He really didn't know what he should say to his brother. Suddenly, Hyuga Hisashi remembered something else he had to tell his brother, albeit with some grief. Big brother, sister-in-law, she hasn't woken up yet. Hayashi's wife had also fainted when she heard about what happened. The woman had just given birth a matter of months ago, only for her beloved newly born daughter to be taken away. It was a heavy blow that most mothers would never recover from. Hyuga Hayashi's expression changed drastically, as he attempted to jump out of the bed. Upon seeing this, Hyuga Hisashi hurriedly pressed the other person's shoulder and dissuaded him. Brother. Calm down. We found the very best medical ninja, they said her life is in absolutely no danger. After finally hearing some good news, Hayashi tried calming down. He sat up with some help from Hisashi. At the moment, unlike most would think, the one who he was most angry with was the kind, old Hokage everyone loved. Why? Why can't we go to war? The Hyuga clan is willing to lead Konoha and take as many losses as it has to take. You weak. Old. Men. After gritting his teeth, Hyuga Hayashi gave his brother a glare and barked out instructions. Hisashi, announced to the clan that from now on we will support Orochimaru as the fifth Hokage. If Hachiro knew about Hayashi's decision, he would definitely release the most maniacal laugh a man could. His goal was achieved, and the relationship between the Hyuga family and the Hokage's faction was badly fractured and potentially irrecoverable. Hyuga Hayashi didn't like Orochimaru one bit. However, if he wanted to oppose the elders led by Sarutobi, this was the only thing he could do. It's not like this could satisfy the hatred he was feeling right now anyway. However, upon hearing Hayashi's order, Hisashi smiled bitterly. Brother, in the past few days when you were in a coma, the decision the council came to. Hyuga Hisashi's expression became even more sad. We won't be electing a fifth Hokage, but rather the third will take over until further notice. For a while, Hyuga Hayashi's eyes became like glass and everything started swaying in his vision. After a few seconds. Thud. Hayashi could hear his brother shouting as his conscience started fading. Big brother. Are you okay? Do you need me to get someone? Hyuga Hisashi was shocked. Hyuga Hayashi raised his hand to signal that he was okay, resisting the twitching pain coming from his chest. Order everyone in the Hyuga clan, in the future try not to stand out. Difficult times are coming. His daughter wouldn't come back on her own. The only thing he could do was forget about her. But that did not mean he would let go of his hatred so easily. Not towards the Cloud Shinobi, and certainly not towards that weak, old, traitor. Chapter 7, Land of Lightning's Culture. 49 years after Konoha's establishment in February. The news of the fourth Hokage dying in an effort to seal the nine-tailed fox away again surprised everyone. Not only were they surprised about the Nine-Tails rampage, but also because Hiruzen Sarutobi, who had long since retired as the third Hokage, returned right to that position once again. Yeah, the fourth died, but what about Orochimaru? Isn't he a suitable candidate for fifth Hokage? Well, turns out he's not. At least according to Hiruzen Sarutobi, his character was not fit for Hokage. And he, the old man, was more suitable. Yes, definitely. What's more, wasn't there another Kage-level ninja roaming about? Why don't you just ask him to come back? In the secret research institute located under Orochimaru's residence. Danzo leaned on a cane and looked at Orochimaru's back, and said in a deathly cold tone. That old fool Sarutobi took advantage of that brat Minato's death to regain his old political power. I couldn't beat him. Orochimaru's eyes was locked onto the experimental chamber in front of him. Several pipes and needles containing oxygen and nutrition was connected to the chamber. There was a baby covered in needles floating inside one. Heh, what did you expect? A person like Hiruzen-sensei letting go of power? Absurd. Even when Minato was in office he still held onto some of it. Orochimaru still kept face to face with the sleeping baby while he secretly ranted about how ridiculous the situation was. When Hiruzen was picking between him and Minato, what made him decide that Minato was the better man for the position? Because Minato was stronger. Yes, but strength is not the only deciding factor. Things like experience and support were generally more important. The real reason Minato ended up succeeding Hiruzen was that he was naive and easy to manipulate. When Minato was in office he shared it with Hiruzen Sarutobi. Two Kage working together on the same rule. The facade he used was that as a new Hokage he needed to make sure Minato became more familiar with the process and job they had. The young civilian was probably the only candidate that wasn't aware of the Hokage's scheming nature. If Orochimaru or Tsunade had been the Hokage instead, then Hiruzen would get a punch to the face and stripped of all authority outside of the Sarutobi clan. Looking at the babies floating in the chambers, Danzo couldn't help frowning and saying, "You have been taking too many test subjects recently." Hiruzen has started noticing the increase in missing children cases. "You don't have to worry. I have plans and they won't affect you at all," Orochimaru said without much care. "And didn't you want me to transplant the first Hokage's cells into that deformed arm of yours? If that's the case, don't bother me all the time as soon as something goes wrong." Seeing Orochimaru playing the Hashirama cells card, he decided he had stayed long enough. He left behind while saying, "You're taking too many risks. Your crimes will be exposed at this rate." After walking out of the laboratory and feeling the sunlight on his wrinkled skin, he couldn't help but mutter to himself, "Orochimaru can't be trusted. As I expected, only I know what is best for Konoha." However, as Obito said in the original book, the roots should stay buried underground. A mouse accustomed to the dark should not run out under the gaze of the sun. They would be hunted down and trampled on. "Danzo-sama, Lord Hokage is inviting you to go to the emergency meeting room immediately. The meeting on Konoha's reconstruction work is about to begin." An Umbu suddenly came to Danzo to inform him of the Hokage's order. What a brilliant body flicker technique. Seeing this, Danzo couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of jealousy and admiration for this Umbu shinobi. He knew the identity of this Umbu very well, Shursue of the body flicker. Born from the Uchiha clan, he stood out as one of Konoha's greatest geniuses of the current generation. It is a pity that Hiruzen had scouted and took him into his faction the moment he revealed promise. The reconstruction of Konoha was an urgent problem that arose from the Nine Tails incident. The acting Hokage proposed that the Uchiha clan, which was originally located around the center of Konoha, was moved over towards the southern border, which, coincidentally, was close to the Umbu base. He really wanted to scoff at him. He wasn't even trying to hide the distrust to the Uchiha. And letting him, the leader of Root, participate was nothing more than a formality and announcement of his decision. Hiruzen, wait and see. Someday, soon this old man will become Hokage. Although, he was upset at how he was being practically disregarded at the moment, he didn't dare confront him head-on. After all, right now as the acting decision-maker for the village he had much more influence among the clans and elite ninja backing him. Compared to the chaos that was going on in Konoha, Kumogakure relatively more peaceful. They were currently having a competition. The island turtle was a training dedicated to training high-level ninja. There was two snakes of lightning constantly shuttling around. They were colliding against each other with a series of booms. In reality these bouncing thunderbolts were the Fourth Raikage and Hachiro. On the higher ground of both sides, spectating villagers and shinobi who had just returned from their missions watched on. This was one of their customs, a duel between some of the strongest shinobi of the village. Hachiro's right hand spun in the air, a violent thunder arc magnified in size taking on the shape of a dragon. 60 million volts thunder dragon. "Look, that's brother-in-law's signature technique," Atsui shouted excitedly. "Ha, you fool. I've seen that technique many times before," Fourth Raikage shouted in excitement. A cloak made from lightning chakra formed around him. He stretched his right hand straight out in front of him before swinging it at the approaching thunder dragon. Lightning oppression horizontal chop. Lord Raikage's attack seemed stronger. Darui, who stood among the audience, tried predicting the outcome of the fight before him. "Hee hee, here's a trick you haven't seen before, dear cousin. Suddenly, under his opponent's puzzled eyes. Hachiro pulled out a coin from his jacket and used his thumb to flip it up in the air. Chapter 8, Railgun. The coin that he launched vertically began to fall. Lightning arcs coiled around Hachiro, making a snake-like hissing sound. Despite sensing that this unknown technique used less chakra and most likely wasn't as lethal, the Raikage could feel an ominous premonition. The coin descended just in front of his hand. He channeled the lightning chakra into thumb, passing it along to the coin as he flicked it forward. Railgun. Whistle. The friction caused by the coin generated waves of heat and sound. The onlookers could only see an orange beam shooting towards leader. Ugh. Even though the Fourth Raikage was well known for his speed, he failed to escape its trajectory after being caught off guard. Killer Bee had his notebook out while he commented on the battle. Big Bro's taking the hit, soon he's going to end it. No, that attack doesn't seem to be simple. However, his close friend, the Eight Tails, gave a completely different judgment. Boom. The sound of a muffled explosion came from inside the Raikage's body. Everyone present looked up again. The coin coated in lightning chakra pierced the Raikage's chakra armor before inserting itself in his body. Immediately afterwards, blood dripped out. What? Killer Bee's eyes displayed how surprised he was despite wearing sunglasses. The other Cloud Shinobi ninjas around him didn't try to hide their astonishment either. Whoa, someone can actually crack Lord Raikage's chakra armor. I thought that only Lord Third's Hell Stab could break through the chakra made by lightning release mode. The Fourth Raikage stood in the middle of the canyon frowning. He dug into his shoulder with his right hand and forced out what remained of the coin. The coin had half vaporized thanks to the immense heat released earlier. Now, you can finally break through my defense. You've finally grown up, Hachiro. Fourth Raikage said while recalling some fond memories. No, it wasn't as impressive as I expected it to be. I can probably still increase the power of that technique a few times. If I was facing Uncle Third, the coin would have just bounced off of him. Hachiro shook his head. Hey. No need to brag, I could still floor you in a fight. The Raikage shouted, seemingly dissatisfied. Hachiro just laughed it off. It was the truth after all. Misaka Mikoto was a level 5 Esper from Academy City. Her maximum output was around 1 billion volts. 5 times that of Enel's output of 200 million volts. The gap between them was as large as Madara and an average Kage. No matter how generous of an evaluation you gave, he was nowhere near the Sage of Six Paths level. But considering you're still growing, I'm relieved to know I have someone who can take over as the next Raikage for me. The Fourth Raikage opened his mouth and laughed wildly, ignoring the medical ninja using a healing ninjutsu to speed up his body's ability to heal. In Konoha, the majority of those in power try to cling onto their authority. Even when after death they try to hold onto it. Although Kumo doesn't have a lot of people in high positions, the ones that do possess an ability qualifying them for their role. In Kumogakure, the strong have the most say. If you don't agree with the authority, you simply need to work hard and become strong enough to get the village's recognition. The position of Raikage was also chosen through strength. So if there comes a day where someone stronger rises from Kumogakure, then it's only fair for them to be allowed to become Raikage. Nope, no way am I sitting in an office to do paperwork all day. Hachiro raised his hand and swung it about lightly. Although he likes how honest Cloud Shinobi were, sometimes they could be quite tiring. Kumo is definitely better than Konoha without a doubt. Everything over there was tied to politics. He kind of pitied the shinobi that had to deal with that all the time. Over here he could train every day without worries. Becoming Raikage would mean he would have to sign documents all day long while making sure he doesn't do anything that could be taken negatively by the other villages. As soon as he got home, he could hear crying from inside his house. Hachiro rushed in to see Samui blankly staring at Hinata. What's the matter? Does she need to go to the toilet again? Samui just looked at him grumpily and complained. Are you blind? She is obviously hungry. Hachiro scratched his head helplessly. All she's doing is crying. How am I meant to know if she's dying from a terminal illness or simply thirsty? Why can't I understand her crying? Is this a woman's intuition type of thing? You've only been a nanny for a few weeks, so when did you develop all these skills? You look thirsty. Want some milk? Samui said, talking to the baby. Milk. As in breastfeeding, milk. He was no longer one bit sleepy. However, under his attentive gaze, Samui just took out a baby bottle from her ninja bag and aimed for Hinata's mouth. Hachiro. What are you thinking about? Samui violently stepped on his foot with a gentle smile on her face. Ouch. Note, this chapter was one hell of a pain. Chapter 9, don't worry, the Konoha elders will kill him for us. In the original story, the Hyuga kidnapping incident was the cause of Hyuga Hisashi's death and collapse of the alliance recently formed by Kumogakure and Konogakure. This time around, Konoha took the initiative to comply with the Cloud's demands and sacrificed the young Hinata, preserving the alliance in the end. However, the alliance didn't entail trade or anything. Rather, it merely prevented them from trespassing onto each other's land without consent. 3. Of course, that was only on the surface. The Fourth Raikage and Kumo as a whole was eager to try snagging the most fertile land in the shinobi world. However, only half a year after Hinata had become a civilian of the Cloud, big news came from Konoha. Orochimaru, one of the Sannin, who had made great contributions to Konoha, became a S-class rebel and defected. According to the information given by the spies they had planted in the Land of Fire, the reason was that Orochimaru had secretly been kidnapping children for human experiments. The other shinobi villages didn't care for what reason he defected, but what they did know was that now their adversary had lost one of their strongest fighters and commanders. Ha ha ha. Konoha is losing all their ninja one by one. On the island Turtle, the training ground of Kumogakure, the Fourth Raikage laughed loudly and strode over to his cousin, who was in the middle of doing finger push-ups. What do you think? Now Konoha only has Sarutobi Hiruzen, who is in his 60s. We should take this chance to rally the troops. Hachiro flipped around from his push-up position and sat down. Laying down on a flat stone beside him was a baby girl, cheering him with every push-up he completed. Whoa. Whoa. Hyuga Hinata, no, I meant Raiden Hinata. So cute. Mabui's pupils turned into hearts, and she leaned forward to lift Hinata up. However, to her dismay, she was slapped back by Hinata's chubby baby hands. All I want is a hug. No harm. I promise. Mabui grieved and said. Cousin, what do you think? Seeing that he did not answer, the Fourth Raikage could only ask again. To be honest, in Kumogakure, aside from his brother Killer Bee, the only one he had enough patience with to have a proper conversation was this cousin of his. I recently just got some information. Jiraiya was recalled by Hiruzen back to Konoha. Hachiro cast a glance over to his lover Samui, who was standing on the edge of the training ground. Samui knew what he wanted as she handed over the small set of scrolls she had been tasked to bring. The Fourth Raikage took a look and gave it a quick glance all over. The Sannin, Jiraiya, who was wandering about outside Konoha, returned upon hearing of Orochimaru's betrayal. These bastards. They're endless, one dies and another pops up from some hole in the ground. He angrily tore the scroll to pieces. He was feeling both angry and jealous. Konoha seemed to be a breeding ground for geniuses. What was worse was that God seemed to have some sort of favoritism towards Konoha. One genius from Konoha dies, another is born. They were even more numerous than parasites. And recently he had heard a lot about the rise of a kid called Shursui Uchiha. Since Konoha had formed an alliance with the Sand, Rock and Cloud Shinobi villages at the beginning of the year, the only conflict that was still ongoing was in the Land of Water. Conflict creates opportunity for geniuses to reveal themselves. It was during the Third Ninja War when Minato Namikaze earned himself the title, Yellow Flash, by single-handedly slaughtering a force of Iwadakure shinobi. The conflict with the mist revealed the up-and-coming prodigy Shursui Uchiha. In as little as 6 months, Shursui's name resounded throughout the shinobi world. The Fourth Raikage was jealous. Was Konoha growing geniuses instead of crops? Don't worry about Jiraiya. He likes freedom, so he won't stay in Konoha for long. When Hachiro responded, he was closely observing his index finger and thumb on his right hand. If you looked close enough, you would realize that his fingertips had become shiny and reflective. This was armament hockey. He continued, as for Shursui Uchiha. Just pretend he doesn't exist, he won't for much longer anyway. The Konoha elders will kill him. His words caused the others to feel puzzled. What? Why? He has the potential to reach the Kaga level, which village wouldn't want to nurture him? The Konoha elders are cowards in their own right, but why would they drive a potential Kage to their death? The Fourth Raikage didn't doubt that Hachiro was wrong. So far his predictions weren't far off the mark. Seeing the confusion of the Fourth Raikage and his assistant, he smiled. That's right, in general when a genius leaves a ninja village, they have shadow guards to make sure they can survive their Genin and Chunin days. It was only after they become Jonin they reveal their real worth. But the problem was Hiruzen's brain circuit works in weird and wonderful ways so much different from the norm. To him, one less genius just means the next one will have to fill in for the last. Previous examples could be the Hataki before their numbers thinned, and as of right now, Shursui Uchiha. By the way, Hachiro, where did you get this news from anyway? The Raikage suddenly remembered and asked. How did Hachiro get information that he didn't when he was the Raikage? From Orochimaru. Hachiro replied dully. Once again, everyone's eyes widened. Note, I think there is a Chinese Sanji thingy in one of the next few chapters. I'm dreading it already. Chapter 10, Plans for Konoha's Collapse. Hachiro didn't conceal the fact that he had tried establishing contact with Orochimaru back during the kidnapping incident. A few days ago, Orochimaru was into the land of steam by Konoha Shinobi. According to the recent alliance treaty, Kuni was under the jurisdiction of Kumogakure. Before they obtained consent from the Raikage or a representative of the Land of Lightning, they were not allowed to enter the territory of Kumogakure. Because of this, the Konoha Shinobi had to stop chasing the rebel and stand by on the border until further orders. Orochimaru and Hachiro had already reached an agreement in advance. Orochimaru would give Kumogakure access to his summoning snake network and important information on the Leaf Umbu. For example, Shinosuke Sarutobi, the current head Umbu captain possessing the highest authority, his code name was Scarlet, or Shursui Uchiha, who was the captain of a squad and carried the code name Crow. Hachiro didn't think would suspect him of trying to betray the Cloud. They were cousins that had known each other since young and had a good level of trust between each other. The main profiteer of the deal was the Cloud anyway. After hearing about his relationship with Orochimaru, he pondered for a moment and said, Orochimaru is dangerous, so be careful when dealing with him. He's the last kind of person you should trust. He left the training ground with Tutai and his other deputies. If it was the Third Hokage, he would have had at least a few Umbu spying on him from time to time to make sure he wasn't colluding with the enemy. Life in Kumogakure was just that much better. Actually, maybe it's because I'm his cousin. Oh, well, doesn't really matter that much either way. There's nothing better than a shower after training. At home, Hachiro walked out of the bathroom with a towel around him. He saw Samui holding a rubber pacifier inside Hinata's mouth and singing a lullaby in a gentle voice. Go to sleep, little baby. Go to sleep, little baby. Your mama's going to sway. And your daddy's going to pray. Listening to the coaxing voice of her surrogate mother, she soon fell into a slumber. As someone who had watched the anime, Hachiro could hardly associate the mature, calm, and generally silent lady with this woman in front of him. Why are you smiling like a mother already? Aren't you meant to be an ice queen? Hachiro couldn't help but complain to himself. Are you asleep? Hachiro silently sneaked up behind Samui and asked. Be quiet, Hinata finally fell asleep. If you wake her up you're going to be the one to sing her lullabies. Samui turned around and instantly recovered her ninja personality. He was speechless. Is this the fruit of your ninja training? Switching your expression so seamlessly has to be pretty difficult. Alright, but let's talk about some business. Hachiro gave a smirk and jumped, launching an attack on the Kuniochi. Come on, wear this. He pulled Samui up with one hand and took out a Japanese school uniform from the closet. This time he made sure to get the measurements right. The last time it was a bunny outfit and it didn't really fit very well. So in the end he had to settle for bunny ears. Samui's expression revealed how badly she wanted to kill him. You. Wah. TSK dash. Oh come on you little minx, I haven't had a good night in what feels like years. After Hinata had moved in half a year ago, Samui had been so preoccupied so they hadn't been able to go on any missions or dates. It was heartbreaking. You're a good girl. Don't cry. Don't cry. After the baby started crying, Samui threw the uniform aside and ran over to placate the child. Hachiro. I will admit that you, Hinata, are strong. But My new rival, don't think for a moment I'm going to give up so easily. I'll finish my business next time. I think I'll go and see how my new partner is doing. He should have arrived at the rendezvous location by now. After changing into his shinobi gear, he headed towards the entrance of Kumogakure. He couldn't help but feel a familiar feeling of discomfort he hadn't felt in years. This jacket feels so uncomfortable. He frowned as he felt a sudden urge for modern clothes. The land of steam is where Raiden was born. It was located between the land of fire and land of lightning. It was once under the influence of the land of fire. However, during the Third Shinobi War, Hachiro's presence helped the Cloud win some battles they originally hadn't. Any Kage-level shinobi could easily annihilate a small battalion of shinobi. That makes a big difference in a war. The war was also the catalyst for their decision to support Kumogakure instead of Konoha. A few hours later, by the river of a small village in the land of steam, a thunderbolt crashed into the riverside. There's no need to hide. I know you're there. After transforming back into his human form, Hachiro seemed to have spoken to himself. From behind the trees on the far side a humanoid snake revealed himself. Konoha's S-rank rebel Orochimaru. I thought I asked for you to get Konoha off my tail. Orochimaru, who was still wearing a Konoha shinobi uniform, sneered hoarsely. We're preventing them from approaching you, and more importantly, I would like to discuss the idea of destroying Konoha in the future. Hachiro turned his head and walked straight over to the dirt path on the side of the river and sat down. Battalion, made up of 2 or more companies, they number around 400 to 1,200 troops. Note, I was contemplating whether it was a good idea to just delete half this chapter and move on with my life. Chapter 11, The Enhanced Konoha Crush Plan. Hachiro and Orochimaru discussed a plan on how to bring about Konoha's imminent doom. Right now, the only thing that was stopping a true collapse was the death of the Third Hokage. Although in terms of pure statistics Konoha was only third in terms of strength among the ninja villages. The shinobi from the clans were much stronger and versatile compared to their counterparts. This was the case especially with clan heads. There was also the lone geniuses like Kakashi Hatake and Might Guy who could ruin the plan with their dojutsu and taijutsu. Of course, like in the original they could work around that, and with much more shinobi it would be much for them to accomplish their objective. In the original Orochimaru attacked Konoha with less than 200 shinobi, imagine what would happen if that became 500 or 600. The ensuing chaos would be more than enough to bring Konoha to its knees. Although, it would be a problem sneaking so many shinobi past the border of the land of fire, the guards aren't dolls made of straw after all. This plan was going to be an enhanced version, the Konoha Crush plan. After discussing for about half an hour. Even with how calm and detached he was, he couldn't help but sweat at how well informed the Cloud was about the ninja from Konoha. Kumogakure lives up to its reputation as a village that thrives in war. With how much information you have, you must have a lot of spies. Let's stop planning here for the time being. We don't have specific numbers on how many and which shinobi we will have. We can plan in more detail after we have got confirmation. Hachiro got up from the rock and asked. So, where are you going next? Couldn't Hachiro-kun make a place for me in Kumogakure? Orochimaru asked tentatively with a weird smile. Despite not being afraid of snakes, I don't have much interest in raising them either. He responded with a smile. Although he isn't afraid of Orochimaru, give him enough time and he could do practically anything. Plus, according to a report from one of the high-ranking spies hidden in Konoha, Orochimaru had taken over thousands of people before he was caught. It wasn't that Konoha shinobi were incapable, but rather the snake was too capable. With how messy and uncontrollable experimental research was, it would probably require countless lives for each project. Hachiro wasn't interested in helping Orochimaru kidnap people from the land of lightning. Orochimaru had never thought of relying on Kumogakure's charity from the start, he just shrugged it off. After Minato's death I prepared a trump card. Hachiro-kun doesn't need to worry about me dying an untimely death. That's good, at least before the Konoha Crush project is completed I don't want you to die. Hachiro raised his hand slightly before becoming a lightning bolt and disappearing off into the distance. How does that jutsu mimic the properties of thunder so well? After a moment of pondering he looked at the surface of the river, dipped his hand in the water and laughed. Ha ha ha, Sarutobi-sensei, before you know it, all your enemies will come knocking on your door at once. Recalling his discussion on how to implement the plan that would hopefully end in Konoha's destruction, he felt a surge of joy. Kumogakure. After training, Hachiro threw on a white shirt. At first glance, the shirt looked a bit similar to Dracula Mihawk's from One Piece. He was sitting cross-legged on top of the roof on his house. Sitting on his lap was an 11-month-old Hinata. Her hair had grown slightly, flaunting its pretty indigo color. Hachiro held a recently bought book in his hands. Its title said, How to Teach Babies Language, in a fancy font. Currently, he was showing the content of the book to Hinata and pointing at a sequence of letters from the alphabet in a specific order. Hachiro. He was looking forward to Hinata saying his name before Samui's for future parent bragging rights. Oh woo. Hinata rocked about as if she understood, before uttering an incomprehensible cry indicating her lack of comprehension. Ah. Hachiro scratched his head helplessly, then pointed to a word this time and said. Kaizen, Mom. Oh. Hinata pouted and made a weird and cute bubbly sound. He rolled his eyes and resisted to urge to slap her little butt. Forget it, take your time. Oh Dosen, Dad. Hachiro pointed to the next word with dashed hopes. Joshing. Although her pronunciation was not very clear, he could interpret the word easily. F*******. Hachiro shouted in a frightened voice. Immediately, he looked at Hinata with a scared expression. The other party gazed back looking innocent. Ah. Don't say that name in the future, be careful of evil men when you grow up. He rubbed Hinata's little head and said. Hinata tilted her head, not really understanding who Jashin was. That is a very strong and evil man. He kills people for fun. Hachiro fabricated a lie on the spot. Note, I'm currently drinking tea from a mug I got for Christmas. Feels good. Chapter 12, A Peek into the Realm of Six Paths. 51 years since Konoha's establishment, this year was being regarded as starting point for the entire ninja world to enter an era of peace. Konoha had signed a peace treaty with Iwagakure, Sunagakure, and Kumogakure. Kirigakure had ceased their previous small-scale assaults and returned back home to the country of water. The aftermath of the last ninja war had finally calmed down, allowing an era of peace to usher in. As to why Kirigakure had withdrew their troops, Konoha wasn't sure of the specific reason, but it was good for them either way. Maybe because they learnt their lesson after the trick Kumogakure had pulled, they sent Shinobi to investigate. Unfortunately, it only ended in failure, with the only surviving Shinobi being Ibuki Marino. Right now, along with the name of Shisui Uchiha becoming more well known, the doubts and suspicion people were feeling towards the Uchiha was also increasing. In the Nine Tails disaster, the Uchiha became the #1 suspect. What followed after was the brazen kidnapping of the eldest daughter of the Hyuga's main branch, causing 2 major incidents in quick succession. Although both clans fell out with the higher-ups and were victims of recent events, the treatment they received was very different. This was partly due to the Hyuga clan had diminishing their presence under Hayashi's orders, unlike the Uchiha who didn't know the meaning of constraint at all. As a clan that was considered one of the founders alongside the Senju clan, they had a right to be proud. I haven't done anything to you, so why are you doubting me? Since the Nine Tails disaster where the previous clan compound was destroyed, they had been relocated by the elders to the southwest border of the village. The Uchiha didn't understand the meanings of the words humility and respect. Over time, they were gradually becoming more rampant. When they meet other shinobi, especially the Hokage's henchmen, they put on an expression that said they owed them money. What they didn't know was that another successor to the Will of Fire called Itachi Uchiha was quietly growing up. Kumogakure, Turtle Island. The Lightning God System, Host, Hachiro Raiden. First template, Enel, Unlocking Degree, 100%, second template, Misaka Mikoto, Unlocking Rate, 20.6%. He scanned his recent growth progress using the system before feeling a surge in physical strength. He heard a mechanical prompt. Congratulations, Host. Your second template, Misaka Mikoto's unlocking rate has reached 20%. Automatically upgrading. Upgrade complete. Second template, Misaka Mikoto, opening stage. Magic God power level. Wait, Magic Gods. I don't remember her ever becoming that strong, isn't that like, level 6? Did something like this happen in the light novel? No, actually, I think I remember watching a movie or series about some mad scientist trying to make Misaka an angel. I definitely remember the arm of the Imagine Breaker kid being torn off and spitting out a bunch of colorful dragons. Damn it, I should have watched that series or movie a few times to make sure I remembered it. But anyway, she seemed pretty unstable in that form. I wonder if I will have to use it like a trump card. It would suck if I had to go berserk just to replicate the original power that form produced. Brat, since you've taken the initiative to challenge me, I assume you're ready for some pain. The Fourth Raikage roared like thunder. Lightning chakra, thicker than last time, had already coated his body as he charged towards Hachiro. The chakra cloak formed two horns on his head for added lethality, as he bulldozed towards his opponent's chest. This was a technique that nearly every Cloud Shinobi knew. Lightning release, lariat. A simple but powerful taijutsu technique. The user charges towards the opponent's chest, rendering a bloody hole in it. When coupled with the lightning release, chakra cloak, it becomes a quick and powerful method capable of incapacitating enemies. Cousin, have you still not mastered your old man's hell stab technique? Hachiro taunted him, knowing which buttons to push. Shut up. Take my lariat first. The Fourth Raikage showed some agitation as he felt an old wound on his mind reopening. His father, the Third Raikage, was famous as he was quite possibly the strongest Kage after Senju Hashirama. The Hell Stab was a technique he created that gave the user piercing power rivaling that of Chidori or Raikiri. Hell Stab was Kumogakure's similar of Konoha's Flying Thunder God Jutsu. Just like Senju Tobirama left a way for the people of Konoha to practice the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, the Raikage did the same. Unfortunately, these techniques proved to be incredibly difficult for their descendants to learn, with a genius like Minato being the only one to master and improve the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. Surpassing his father was a dream he had had since young. Right now, aside from his speed, he was inferior in terms of chakra control, attack and defense by a lot. Tisk. Hachiro took out a coin and flicked it up with his thumb. The two onlookers, Killer Bee and Eight Tails, were surprised seeing a familiar movement. After 2 years of hard training, my chakra mode's defense is much stronger. Facing the technique he had previously faced, he only made sure to protect his vitals while continuing forward in a bull stance. Cousin, you aren't the only one who has improved over these last 2 years. He responded with a chuckle. The tip of his thumb made contact with the coin, transmitting waves of lightning chakra inside it. Railgun. Whistle. In an instant the coin crashed into the Fourth Raikage's thigh before continuing on its journey by tearing its way out. Boom. Behind the Fourth Raikage was a 30-meter-long ravine. Arcs of remaining thunder lay about. Killer Bee was stunned. Although they had witnessed the penetrative capabilities of Railgun previously, they didn't think the technique could improve anymore. This time, instead of merely getting stuck in the Raikage's flesh, it had shot through and without much resistance. And that was against one of the toughest chakra cloaks in history. Hachiro-sama could become a well-known jutsu creator. All he needs is to create a few more techniques and it would become official. Mabui swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Chapter 13, Hinata's Special Day. Are you certain you don't want to become the Fifth Raikage? After their spar, the Fourth Raikage kept bringing up the same topic again and again. In most villages, the leaders try to groom individuals that they think are more suitable as village leaders or in case of unforeseen circumstances. For example, the 5th Mizukage Terumi Mei and A both gave up their positions to Changjuro and Darui while they were still alive. This is because they thought their successors would be able to do a better job than them. Hachiro had proven to not only have contributed more to the village but to also have the strength to be on equal footing with the current Raikage despite being younger. Hachiro had also revealed his ability to manage and command the shinobi on the battlefield. It was only natural to elect the best possible candidate for the betterment of the village. The only other candidate that had a chance was the fourth son, Darui, and even then he was outclassed in nearly everything. Cousin, I'm sure there are still things you want to do for the cloud, like the chakra cannon or conquering the land the leaf currently sits on. Besides, I've already told you I have no interest in the work you have to do as Raikage. He waved his hand in refusal. He felt like if he had to repeat himself a few more times he would go insane. Oh, Daddy. A young voice suddenly approached them from the right of them. He turned to look at the entrance of the gorge. A cute doll-like baby girl came waddling towards him with her pair of short legs. Unlike the darker skin that most Kumogakure residents possessed, the little girl was a light peach. However, what made her stand out in this village was her pure lavender eyes, that not one other resident had. Just when the girl was trotting over due to the sudden change in uneven ground, she tripped and fell. "Aha!" the child exclaimed as she was close to hitting the ground. Zoom! In the eyes of others, a literal thunderbolt darted past. Tense, Hachiro firmly embraced the young child before finally relaxing his body. "Thank you, Dusan." The girl snuggled into his neck with excitement, burying her face and trying to get comfortable. "Hinata, be more careful in the future." He held Hinata with his right hand, and rubbed his left on his forehead, trying to erase his headache. "Why?" Hinata tilted her head in confusion. "Because you almost hurt yourself." He could feel the headache growing even more. "So, have you forgotten what day it is?" Behind her, Samui suddenly appeared, with her hand on her hips, looking directly in Hachiro's eyes. "Ah. It doesn't seem like a holiday or festival is going on today." His expression did nothing to hide his bewilderment. Whimper. Wah 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 wah. After hearing Hinata's cries, he suddenly remembered something very important that was coming up soon. "I'm just joking, how could I forget? Today is Hinata's 3rd birthday." Hachiro's puzzled expression switched as if he was playing a bad joke all along as he gave a cheerful smile to Hinata. "Oh, Dusan is the best." Hinata's expression shifted from grief to joy in an instant before hugging his neck even tighter. "My little girl, Hinata, is becoming a big 3-year-old today. It's a day for celebration." Hachiro smiled. Unlike in the original, Hinata seemed to be a lot more outgoing and happy. He thought that it was because she didn't have to worry about the expectations her clan had for her, unlike in the original. It could also be because she was around more honest and forthcoming people in the cloud. He just had to hope she didn't end up having a similar personality to her Road to Ninja counterpart. In the movie, Naruto Shippuden, Road to Ninja, that was released 2012, Hinata had shown up as a minor villain. She became sharp-tongued, domineering and more assertive. The difference between the two was vast, and just imagining Hinata as an aggressive and self-confident kunoichi sent chills down his spine. Running behind her all the time cleaning up her messes would be the thing of nightmares. On December 27, 51 years since the founding of Konoha, Hinata became 3-year-old. With her pure Byakugan, the villagers of Kumo knew at a glance that she was not originally from the land of lightning. This caused some moody shinobi to try and discriminate against her, and let's say it didn't end well for them. A few beatings from Samui, who didn't care about age or status. The villagers learned how scary a pissed-off kunoichi was. After word spread about how Hinata was a part of a shinobi clan, the villagers started treating her better before their children were conquered by Hinata's cuteness. They never stood a chance in the first place. In some ways, she was treated better than the Raikage son Darui. "Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you." In the middle of the table was a chocolate cake with 3 candles stabbed into it. The family of 3 that surrounded the table were singing happy birthday to the sweet little girl. Hinata fixed her birthday hat on her small head before looking at the cake in the center of the table with bright eyes. "Okay, Hinata, make a wish." Samui, the Ice Queen, displayed a gentle and kind smile in front of her daughter, Hinata. Hachiro was feeling slightly mesmerized. "I hope to be a great ninja like Daddy, and a gentle woman like Mommy." Hinata put her hands together, closed her eyes and muttered to herself. When Hachiro heard the word gentle being associated with Samui, he felt like Hinata was going to have a very cruel awakening one of these years. The only time she's remotely gentle is in bed. Even then she gets all worked up when I ask her to cosplay a little. Alright, I guess I should be a little nicer. By the way, big bro. Atsui seemed to have remembered something as he moved close to Hachiro's side and whispered. "Did you learn how to control chakra at the age of 3? "Ah, it's mandatory for most clans in Kumo." He nodded. The age of 3 held a lot of importance for children in this world, especially for the children in ninja clans. Once you became 3 years of age, you would first start training to awaken and control your chakra. From there you could start practicing ninjutsu to become a ninja. He was not an exception. Looking at Hinata, who was nibbling away at the cake, Hachiro suddenly thought of a question. How should I train Hinata? Chapter 14, in Konoha, the Hokage is supreme. Although Hinata was little more than just a cute little ornament, he reasoned it was fine. But now that he thought about it, it was quite idiotic to suggest having her become Hokage. To become the leader of a village as big as Konoha, she would need to become at the very least low-level Kage, but in doing so he would have to pressure her just like the Hyuga clan did. That was the last thing he wanted. In the original anime, she trained in her clan's traditional gentle fist, and to be honest it wasn't all that amazing. Even though they claimed to be on par with the Uchiha clan, the truth was the average shinobi from the Uchiha clan was far stronger than that of the Hyuga. The Uchiha was exterminated in one night, and so it was certainly possible for the same to happen to the Hyuga. Nearly all members of the Hyuga clan believed that their clan was the strongest, but did they ever produce any Kage-level ninja? No, maybe a few ninja with the potential to be one, but ultimately, that was it. In the presence of their ancestor, Otsutsuki Kagaya, they couldn't even stand in front of her. A palm from her could smash through the Susanoo's armor with ease. If that was a technique, then it was way stronger than the gentle fist could ever be. I'm an idiot. I should have planned for this 3 years ago when I decided to go ahead with the plan. Currently, he didn't have access to the training method of the gentle fist. When he took Hinata from Konoha 3 years ago, he forgot to ask them for their traditional techniques. Not that they would give it to him. Hayashi was unconscientious, and the elders would never agree to give their enemies a way to find their weaknesses. Forget it, I'll focus on awakening and training her chakra control first. He was going to push his other problems off to the side for a moment and enjoy Hinata's birthday party. Just when he looked up at Hinata, he received a slap with cream on his face. Ouch! Who the hell was that? Hinata is too cute and small for that, and that brat, Atsui, was even less daring. That could only mean. He saw Samui looking at him and laughing. He wanted to curse her but gave a smile as if nothing happened. Samui. I see you're getting more courageous. Just wait until tonight, I'll make sure I get payback. At the same time, in Konoha, the Hyuga clan had just finished celebrating a small birthday party, missing the special someone's presence. Brother, I heard that sister-in-law has finally recovered from that event. Congratulations. In the patriarch's residence, Hyuga Hisashi had a complicated expression as he gazed at his brother. From what he had heard, Hayashi's wife had still yet to recover from the traumatic event 3 years ago, and if not for the urging of the elders she wouldn't have even considered giving birth again. You know, since the blatant kidnapping of her daughter. She had been attending therapy sessions for over 2 years, and although it had massively helped, she still had doubts of such an event repeating itself. Unfortunately, she had to give the clan an heir or there could be all sorts of problems. Today is Hinata's birthday. Hayashi took a deep breath and said, I barely know anything that goes on in Kumogakure. She could be suffering and I wouldn't even know it. Brother, has your petition not been approved yet? Hisashi asked. Since the initial founding of the alliance between the two villages, the two sides have been trying to get access into the other's land. However, getting the consent of the other's Kage or Daimyo was proving to be an almost impossible task. In the last 3 years, despite how hard he looked, he couldn't get any concrete information on how his daughter was doing the Cloud Shinobi village. Hayashi and his wife had sent out an entry application recently after they had started getting desperate. However, as soon as he asked the question, he wanted to slap himself. Isn't the answer obvious? The Raikage would never agree. Sure enough, he didn't need to hear his brother's reply as he saw an angry expression reveal itself on his face. Hisashi already knew the answer. Have you heard? Hayashi said softly, with a stern face. Hisashi frowned in doubt. That man from the Raiden clan is apparently being groomed as the Raikage's successor. His strength isn't far from the Kage level. When Hayashi mentioned him, he obviously gotten worked up. He's so strong. When Hisashi heard him, he let out a sigh in surprise. It was obvious the ambassador from way back then was strong for his age, but Jonin was a level in which many peak at. Though, if he was a promising Raikage candidate, then that meant Kumo was optimistic about his future. Brother, did you hear this from rumors? I bought it off one of the more trustworthy sources in the black market. They said he was just as strong as the Raikage, and since when have ninja surpassed the leader of their villages? Never. Well, there was the White Fang. After Hayashi heard his brother mention the name of a recent legend from the Hidden Leaf that had committed suicide, he reacted swiftly with slight fear. Don't say his name out loud. A ninja can never be too careful. In Konoha's history, the only shinobi to ever surpass the Hokage, the White Fang, Tsukumo Hatake, killed himself. The reason was that he fell into depression was thanks to rumors. When the other clans heard about this, they could tell something was fishy right from the start. To become a ninja, not to mention one of the strongest in the world, required good mental fortitude. The rumors criticized that he abandoned an S-rank mission because valued the lives of his squad mates more. Later, when they investigated and found the rumors being distributed throughout the village by the Shimura clan, they found the reason the details of an S-rank mission were available to the general public. It's best to assume this information was sent to us by Kumogakure. It's probably to tell us to give up on getting revenge. Hayashi said, feeling a mess of negative emotions. But don't we have Shursue? Surely he can become as strong as the Raikage too. Hyuga Hisashi tried to be optimistic. But it didn't appear to help the situation because he was part of the Uchiha clan that the elders were ostracizing. Uchiha Shursue, how long will he live? Hayashi couldn't help but look far away at the sculpted face of the third Hokage embedded mountain wall around Konoha. Even if he wasn't a part of that clan, who knows if the Hokage would try to eliminate him, just like he ordered Danzo to kill Tsukumo. In this village, if you were as strong as the Hokage, then you were monitored and swiftly dealt with as soon as possible. Chapter 15, Hinata's Chakra Affinities. This generation had a luxury the previous generations hadn't, a happy childhood. This was a privilege that belonged to those who were born in an era of peace. Everyone, including those from smaller villages, felt that this was a happier time than any. With one of the exceptions being the emo of the Uchiha, whose parents, relatives, and clan members had all been killed. The Konoha 11, which primarily was composed of descendants from clans, were 3 years old this year. They had begun awakening their chakra and preparing to be admitted into the ninja academy. Although no one knew yet, the 8-year-old Itachi Uchiha awakened his Sharingan after his teammates had been killed by a mysterious person while out on a mission. It's amazing for someone so young to have such good control over their chakra. On Turtle Island in the Kumogakure, he observed the exhausted Hinata sitting in the center of the training ground. As a sensory ninja, Genki, one of the Raikage's trusted right hands in the village, was extremely surprised. Stop making a fool of yourself. I already told you, pure Byakugan are different in a good way from the normal eyes most Hyuga have. Hachiro was sitting beside him, leisurely sipping away at a cartoon of apple juice. As descendants of Otsutsuki Himura, no matter how weak her blood was, she should have the ability to touch the giant Tensigen on the moon. Hinata definitely had enough potential to become a strong kunoichi like Tsunade or Sakura. It's a pity she never liked the ninja lifestyle in the original and retired early to become a housewife. So, what's the difference between a normal Byakugan and this pure Byakugan? Genki asked curiously. I don't want to explain, it would take too long and be far too complicated. Hachiro lazily waved his hand. Genki had an annoyed expression on his face. Darui came up to him and patted him on the shoulder. The boss wants you, let's go. Genki nodded, and rushed to the Raikage's office with Darui. Hachiro walked over to Hinata. Her head was tilted slightly as she looked up with excitement, she was almost screaming, "Praise me." He was happy to see her so excited and chuckled lightly. Well done, Hinata, you're amazing. Hee hee. Hinata smiled like a flower. Since you've already awakened your chakra and got it under control, we will try to find out what your affinities are. He showed a palm-sized blank sheet of paper. What's this? After taking it, Hinata blinked as she tried to find what made it special by blowing on it. Chakra paper is what we use to test for chakra affinities. He quickly summarized how the chakra paper reacted to the 5 basic chakra properties. Fire burns the paper to ash. Wind will split it in half. Lightning will make it wrinkle. Water makes it damp. And with earth it will transform into dirt and crumble away. Even though he had a system, it didn't possess the ability to analyze chakra affinities. After nodding to signify she understood, she tried to exercise her poor control over her chakra and commanded it to move over inside the blank page. In the next second, the chakra paper reacted. On the left, there were wrinkles, while on the right, sparks ignited and quickly burnt the paper to ashes. Fire and lightning. Hachiro was feeling like this was a message from the heavens. His little girl ended up getting the 2 most aggressive elements when he thought she would be more inclined to the water attribute. Hinata is so cute and kind, how come her elements are the exact opposite? He complained to himself. But actually, this is probably the best combination you could get in this village. It suits quite well. He smiled and said. Hinata tilted her head, conveying that she didn't understand the difference. However, Darui and Genki, who had just left, returned looking for him. Hachiro-sama, Lord Raikage is requesting your presence. Really? Well, I need to go see him for something else as well. He gave a glance at them before picking up Hinata and went to the Raikage's office with the other two in tow. Inside the Raikage's office. Upon seeing Hachiro's arrival, the Fourth Raikage put down the documents in his hands and said, "Can you not come faster next time? One of our spies have just reported some news." "Sure, I will from now on. But if you have a moment later, can you give me the training method for your old man's hell stab technique?" Hachiro requested, before he ended up forgetting later. Huh. The Fourth Raikage's eyebrows shot up, as he asked with vigor. "What? You finally decided to take the time to learn the hell stab? My father is probably rejoicing in his grave." Before the Third Raikage died, he had plans to teach the technique to A, Killer B and Hachiro. Unfortunately, he never got the time to with the war going on that ultimately caused his death. Without his uncle personally teaching him the technique, he felt it was too much of a hassle and ended up focusing on developing the Thunder Fruit's abilities. Fortunately, the Third Raikage had recorded the technique in his diary, which was then copied out onto the Forbidden Scroll. Of course, because of how difficult it was to get access to the scroll and the difficulty in learning the techniques it contains, it was really just sitting there like the scroll in Konoha, which contains Edo Tensei. Upon hearing his request, everyone present was curious on why he had changed his mind. "No, I won't be training it. Rather it will be Hinata who will." Hachiro gave a smirk, and as if showing off a treasure, he lifted Hinata up to face the Raikage. Chapter 16, Shameless Raikage. He stared at Hachiro with a blank expression, as if he was malfunctioning. Then he repeatedly glanced between him and the girl that had her cheeks puffed out like a hamster. He suddenly felt like laughing. Hachiro-sama, are you serious?" Tutai said questioningly. "When have I ever joked with you guys before?" Hachiro put Hinata down while rolling his eyes. Although she wasn't as shy in the original, she still shrank herself behind his leg, trying to hide from the gazes of everyone in the room. "You want to teach your daughter a technique I failed to learn even after 5 years." The Raikage was breathing rather heavily. "You think this little girl can learn what I can't?" "Don't say it like that, cousin, it makes it seem like I'm doing this to spite you." Hachiro walked closer to the sofa before sitting down beside his cousin. Everyone in the office felt like he was walking on a tight rope. Not many knew how hard the Raikage had tried to learn the hell stab. In a way it was part of his father's legacy. However, Hachiro seemed to get some sort of sick pleasure from opening his old wounds. The Raikage's face was pale, and he looked like he was ready to flip his desk. However, seconds later, all his anger seemed to evaporate as a smile bloomed on his face. "Heh. Well then, since you're so confident, how about this, we'll make a bet." After that, the Fourth Raikage's rough fingers pointed towards hiding Hinata with a weird smile. 10 years is the deadline. If that girl fails to learn the hell stab, you will serve as the Cloud's 5th Raikage. Sasuga, Lord Raikage. Tutai and the others in the office wanted to applaud him. 10 years later, the Fourth Raikage would be in his 40s, the prime of most ninja. It's around this age that most ninja peak, and start to decline in physical strength and by extension chakra. At that time, Hachiro, who was less than 30 years old, would undoubtedly be the best candidate to take over the position of Raikage. In 10 years' time he might even have surpassed the Third Raikage. Previously, because he rejected every offer to take the seat, they had begun feeling a headache. Everyone present except Hachiro didn't think there was even the slightest chance she could learn hell stab in 10 years. The Fourth Raikage was good talent that wasn't afraid of working hard, and yet he still hadn't learned it. "I reject." However, Hachiro poured a bucket of water over the Raikage's head, ruining his beautiful dream. "Why? Man up. Are you so scared, you can't agree to a simple bet with me?" The Fourth Raikage slammed his fist down on the desk in front of him, as he tried to taunt him. "Cousin, I'm not a musclehead like you, I don't fall for simple tricks we are taught in the academy." Hachiro continued. If I lose, I will have to sit in your shabby office all day and sign documents. But what if I win? What will you give me? Ah. As soon as this word came out, Fourth Raikage was speechless for a moment. He had forgotten he needed to entice the other party into agreeing with the bet in the first place. He looked over towards his secretary and the group of shinobi beside her for help. After thinking about it carefully, they didn't really have anything to bargain with the young master of a shinobi clan. Ryo. With how many businesses each clan has, he could swim in money, quite literally. Ninjutsu. The clan library probably has some unique techniques that their library didn't. Power. Well, he wasn't interested in the position of Raikage because he would have to deal with paperwork, and there were no higher positions for shinobi. Then what about women? Most of them weren't attractive enough to gain the attention of a shinobi like Hachiro. At the corner of Tutai's eyes, he caught sight of Mabui. The Fourth Raikage secretary and the only remaining possessor of the Heavenly Lightning Kekai Genkai. Mabui was definitely one of the prettiest women in the village. Ahem. Tutai coughed twice and motioned for the Fourth Raikage to look at Mabui. At first, the Fourth Raikage, being a muscular idiot, couldn't understand what he meant. In the end, with great difficulty after half a minute of Tutai staring at Mabui, he realized what he was trying to say. If I lose, then you get to take Mabui. The Fourth Raikage hesitated for a moment, before remembering the chance of him winning and pointed to his secretary. To be honest, he didn't like the thought of using his secretary as a bargaining chip. This was his first time using other people on a wager and he disliked it already. Mabui was so stunned she dropped the file she was holding as it fell to the ground with a thud. How did this argument, that didn't concern her in any way, someone drag her in? After noticing how the eyes of everyone were focused on her, she blushed. More so, when she noticed Hachiro's gaze. A long time ago, she, Samui and Hachiro were classmates in the Clouds Ninja Academy. Back then she had had a childish crush on him, as he stood out as one of the teacher's favorite students, as he was particularly smart and strong. But soon after school had started, Samui and Hachiro had started dating, so she hid her feelings in fear of being pushed away. Although she wasn't sure what to feel for her affection that still remained after such a long time, she couldn't help but be slightly upset that it was brought back up in a bet. Wow, cousin. Using your secretary as a bargaining chip, I wonder whose classes you've been attending to lately. Hachiro said with a laugh. Note, Sasuga, Lord Raikage. Chapter 17, Brainwashed Obito. When the Fourth Raikage heard Hachiro's opinion, he felt like he was right. Mabui wasn't his personal property, she was her own person, and using her as a bargaining chip was a bit much. Just when the Fourth Raikage was about to cancel and look over what he could use as an incentive instead, Tutai suddenly interjected. Lord Raikage, Mabui is agreeing. Huh. For a moment, everyone looked at Mabui. The Fourth Raikage had a stern expression as he asked tentatively. Mabui, you're fine with this bet? Aha. Even as she was drinking her coffee, it was difficult for her tan to hide how red her face was. Cough. Tutai let out a fake cough and interjected again. As a member of the Kumogakure, Mabui is willing to contribute to the future of the village, right? Yes, yes. Mabui didn't dare look up, as she felt her cheeks heat up, and said with her head lowered and in a low voice. For the future of the village. Seeing Mabui answer, Tutai hurriedly pushed the boat along. Lord Raikage, Hachiro-sama, since Mabui has no objections, I don't think there is a problem. Although the Fourth Raikage didn't have a lot of intelligent muscles, he was surprised by how devoted Mabui had become to furthering the village all of a sudden. But he put it aside and also quickly said. Yes, since no one has any objections, it's decided. Mabui, take this signature and go ask the general guarding the North Library to bring out his quarter of the Forbidden Scroll. Now that the gambling agreement was established, then they were certain that Hachiro would be forced to become the Fifth Raikage in 10 years' time. What? There was still a chance. If this little girl manages to learn my father's technique, then I, the Fourth Raikage, will eat this desk I'm sitting at right here. Okay, the Fourth Raikage didn't say that out loud. Wouldn't want the fool who agreed to this bet to become hell-bent on withdrawing. Would we now? Hee hee, bwahaha. Hachiro rubbed his temple helplessly. He looked at his old classmate Mabui, who averted her eyes before walking out quickly. A while later, she returned with a torn scroll and handed it to Hachiro. From beginning to end, she didn't dare to look up at him. "Lord Raikage, don't forget the business," Tutai reminded him. "Oh. I almost forgot about that." The Fourth Raikage slapped his forehead and said seriously. "Hachiro, the reason I asked you to come was because of Kumogakure. Missed Shinobi." He replied quickly. Their Mizukage must already be in Obito's control. In the original work, this was the start of the village's transformation into the Bloody Mist. Actually, he suspected that the third Mizukage had been manipulated by Madara Uchiha even before Obito brainwashed the fourth. After all, Rin, the person that caused Obito to descend into the darkness, was technically killed by the Mist Shinobi. If Uchiha Madara was the one who ordered the third Mizukage to act that way, then it wasn't without reason that Obito and Rin accidentally got mixed into a much bigger scheme than they were ready for. As for why he couldn't have just controlled someone else with a high position, there is no way any sane village leader would risk a tailed beast like that. Tailed beasts were strategic weapons of mass destruction. To buy it back would take much more money than it was worth. Half a year ago, the fourth Mizukage, Yagura, had a sudden change in temperament. He not only made drastic reforms in the village's management system, but also targeted the shinobi clans with Kekkei Genkais. The advisor explained. Kumogakure has become a bloody mess. The Kagaya, Yuki, and Hozuki clans have been massacred with barely anyone escaping. Even those who were lucky enough to survive have high bounties and are living like fugitives. Having said that, Tutai paused for a second, and continued on. This is especially so for the Yuki and Kagaya clans. They have been completely wiped out, they cease to exist. What had he expected? If Obito Uchiha was brainwashed enough to kill his own teacher, then he sure as hell could slaughter thousands of helpless people to satisfy his own desire for the Eye of the Moon plan. Although, realistically, the most likely possibility was that the massacre was designed to cripple Kumogakure's high-level combat power and cause chaos for the Akatsuki's development. Speaking of which, what is up with Konoha and Kumogakure? They seem to like antagonizing their clans as much as their enemies. If they came to Kumogakure, then I would give them VIP treatment. The Fourth Raikage complained with envy and jealousy. Among the 5 great shinobi villages, the Cloud had the least clans, with even less having Kekkei Genkai. "So what do you want me to do specifically?" Hachiro asked. "Well, with the clans that have bloodline limits fleeing, we may as well see where we can profit," Tutai explained. Whether it is the Kagaya clan's Dead Bone Pulse, the Hozuki clan's Liquefaction, or the Snow clan's Ice Release, they are all extremely powerful bloodline limits. Can you please take a trip, Hachiro-sama? It would be a pity for the bloodline limits of those clans to get killed off like that. Hey, sure thing. Hachiro smirked. Don't you have experience in abducting people? After all. Fourth Raikage glanced at Hinata hiding behind Hachiro's trousers, and chuckled. Now that he thought about it, Kumogakure had a lot of talents. The 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist were all talented jonin before receiving their swords. Hachiro-sama, what do you think? Tutai asked. Yeah, I'll go. Let's be honest, we won't be able to call ourselves shinobi if we don't squeeze this opportunity for all it's worth. Hachiro replied. Note, feeling sick and I just woke up. I'm going to go back and edit the first few chapters today, because I forgot to. Chapter 18, Hinata begins her training. Kumo had already thoroughly took advantage of Konoha's current plights, and squeezed them dry. From now, until the original plot starts, the only geniuses that will gain prominence are Hatake Kakashi, Might Guy, Shisui Uchiha, and Itachi Uchiha. 2 of them are possessors of Hiruzans, and coincidentally from the Uchiha clan. What's even more amusing is that they're probably 2 of the greatest geniuses the Uchiha clan has produced since its founding. If their ancestors found out, they would probably crawl out from their graves in anger. Apart from those 4, I guess Hinata's sister Hanabi is the only one with enough talent to become a Kage. But she's not born yet, so it's better to put her aside from now. In comparison, right now, Kumogakure is handing out bloodline limits free of charge. The Kagaya, Hozuki, and Yuki clans are all facing annihilation with Obito's eyes locked onto them. No matter how well they flee, it will be hard to escape a village as big as Kumogakure when they attach such importance to hastening their inevitable demise. I'll go there. After responding, he pulled Hinata into a hug and turned around to leave. Before leaving, he casted a glance towards Mabui and said, "Don't force yourself. This is for the future of the village." Mabui replied accordingly. Bang. After making sure he had left, the Fourth Raikage also checked with Mabui. "Mabui, are you really okay with this? If you want me to, I can cancel the bet." "Nope, it's okay, it's all for the village," Mabui said with a strange expression. "Haha, Lord Raikage hasn't figured it out yet. Mabui secretly has a crush on Hachiro-sama, we're just helping her push the boat along." Tutai smiled and teased. "Ah. Really?" The Fourth Raikage asked in disbelief. Mabui screamed with her thoughts stripped bare and ran out of the office in shame and anger. After dropping Hinata off to Samui, and saying some tearful goodbyes, he went and bought some equipment he would need for the journey to Kirigakure before setting off. Although he had the training method for the Hell Stab, he didn't intend to start training her with it now, not that he could. First of all, she needed to gain better control over her chakra so she could learn lightning style, chakra mode. So he just showed her the tree climbing and water treading exercises, before asking Samui to supervise her when she's training. He would hate himself if she ended up getting severe injuries or died drowning in a pool. She was just a 3-year-old toddler, her baby body had not developed enough for her to build up enough muscle and fat to cushion her falls. Observing Hinata, who was trying hard to take her first few steps up a tree, Samui looked down at the letter Hachiro had left. Is he crazy? He wants Hinata to learn the Hell Stab before she's 13. Similar to the Raikage, she didn't think Hinata could learn the Third Raikage's infamous technique. She even wanted to give Hachiro a slap, and ask, "Do you want to waste her entire childhood learning some god-forsaken technique just to win a bet?" A few hours later, Samui walked Hinata home after deciding she had trained enough for the day. Two of the Cloud Shinobi upon seeing the pair whispered to each other. "Hey, did you hear about the bet between Lord Raikage and the Raiden clan?" "No, what did they bet on? Is it lightning jutsu like last time?" "Nope. According to the agreement between Lord Raikage and Hachiro-sama, Lord Raikage will lose if that little girl manages to learn the Hell Stab in 10 years. Huh? Are you serious? Lord Raikage has been trying to learn the jutsu for a long time now, how could a 3-year-old learn it faster than him? Apparently, if the Raikage wins, Hachiro-sama will become the 5th Raikage. Another Cloud Shinobi curiously said. Then, what if Lord Raikage loses? Although they felt that it was unlikely for the Raikage to lose the bet, out of curiosity the Chunin couldn't help but ask. Hee, Miss Mabui will be betrothed to Hachiro-sama. A Cloud Shinobi who was eavesdropping couldn't help but unhappily remark. The hell? I know clans are allowed to do this kinda stuff because of the repopulating laws, but going for 2 of the most beautiful women in the village, they're spoiled rotten. Another listener seemed to be enjoying the commotion as he said. Haha, it's a pity that there's no way for Hachiro-sama to win the bet in the first place. A few of them laughed. What are you guys talking about? A calm and mature voice entered their ears and they turned around subconsciously, for their eyes to collide with Samui's. The group of Chunin had a fright for their lives as she spoke condescendingly. I want the entire story, repeat what you just said. 2 of them ran off, leaving the other 2 grumbling on the ground. Those traitors. 5 minutes later, after she had gotten the entire story, she returned the direction she came from and followed the path back home. When she arrived, she found another copy of herself and Hinata playing with the neighbor's black cat. Ah, there's another mommy! Hinata shouted suddenly. Original Samui, who was playing with Hinata, turned around, asked her clone for a report, with a frown. So, what was there about Hinata? After thoroughly explaining what the ongoing gossip was, she put Hinata to bed before dispelling herself. In a nearby pub inside the village, Samui and Mabui were sitting opposite each other as former classmates in the bar. It's been a long time since we came to a bar together. Mabui gave a chuckle, trying to break the silence. I think the last time was just before we graduated from the academy. Samui took a sip of wine, as her cheeks flushed red, and she asked. So, do you still like him? Chapter 19, Enough Corpses to Fill a City. 10 years ago, when they were still in the academy, Mabui, Samui, and Hachiro were in the same class. Mabui back then had a crush on Hachiro while he never noticed, as he was more interested in Samui. After he and Samui started dating, she tried to withdraw silently. She didn't want to get in the way of their relationship. Gradually she disappeared from their lives altogether. After hearing about the bet, she had some guesses about what had happened, but she wanted confirmation if it was as she thought. In Kumogakure, most clans thought it to be beneath them, and she knew the advisors well enough to know they had a moral code. The muscle-brained gorilla, the Fourth Raikage, would never think of something like this on his own. So, if Mabui had rejected, then this gamble wouldn't have been established in the first place. That. Mabui was speechless, not knowing how to answer such a straightforward question. To be honest, although the Raikage proposal annoyed her, a small part of her was happy about it. It's been 8 years since we graduated from the academy. With how pretty you are, what do you find so attractive about that bastard? She glanced sideways at Mabui and compared their assets, as she poured herself some more sake. Mabui had coffee-black skin, a thin waist and well-developed body. With a near-perfect appearance like that, she should have plenty of admirers. So what did he say about it? Mabui smiled slightly. Never mind, I already know he's probably off celebrating somewhere. Mabui felt her lips twitching, seeing Samui have a conversation with herself. So far, Hachiro had put forward a lot of plans and ideas that could be considered otherworldly. The idea to sow tension among the Leaf, 3 years ago, was just one of many. In the eyes of others, it was as if he had hundreds of heads working together to generate knowledge that belonged to the future. The two women sat in an awkward silence for a few minutes before reminiscing about the old days. The land of water. Hachiro was strolling along the official road that led to Kirigakure with a straw hat on his head. He was frowning as from the moment he stepped onto the path he could smell blood and see corpses laying about. The corpses didn't consist of just those from clans but those who had rebelled against the rule of the tyrannical Mizukage. He sighed and thought. Obito, sure, was working hard to gain undisputed control over the bloody mist. He's crazy. Further along the road, he saw several more shinobi dressed in the mist's shinobi uniform. Obito had without a doubt gone so far down his path of insanity, he could never turn back and become a good man again. He could only lament and guess what these innocent people felt. He would never be able to find out now that they were already 6 feet under. Now that I think about it, Naruto forgave him in the anime. He has probably killed tens of thousands of people and affected the lives of millions for the worse. Considering Naruto was always preaching about peace, it seems slightly hypocritical in hindsight. Suddenly, he stopped and carefully observed his surroundings. The smell of blood had thickened many times over. He felt slightly dizzy and more than that, a sense of familiarity. Just like the battlefield, huh? He looked around and on a rough estimate, at least 300 people had died. He could see corpses littered everywhere like it was a rubbish dump. He slowly followed the origin of the metallic smell north. Hachiro rushed ahead to find a small village surrounded by sea. After entering the village, he muttered to himself. They're all dead. Hundreds of corpses were gathered in front of a small wooden hall. It seems like they all gathered her in an effort to protect their families and food. Many of the corpses were holding knives, pitchforks, and other farming tools. The murderer didn't use a weapon. It seems they likely used earth or water-style jutsu, but there doesn't seem to be any chakra in the ground. He squatted down and checked the bodies of the villagers, confirming that it was definitely some form of ninjutsu. Was it him? Hachiro stood up again, making some guesses. They seem unnaturally cold. He shouldn't have gone far. He closed his eyes and scanned dozens of miles around him using observation haki that he was buffing with the rumble fruit. After a while, he opened his eyes and transformed into lightning as he hurried east. Well, that's one down, I guess. A young figure crawled along the side of the river bank. The figure looked up at the snow. The small child exhausted the last of its strength as it tried climbing inside the hollow of a tree in an effort to warm and hide themselves. Daddy. Why did you kill Mother? Why? Despite the child's face covered in dirt, it was possible to vaguely make out their perfectly symmetrical facial features that were arranged nearly and beautifully. The child that looked 6 years old, at most, was crying. Rumble. After a while, his stomach started begging for food, interrupting his cries. He just sat dazed. That's not good, you're so hungry, you can't even cry. The sudden voice caused the child to jump back in surprise. Note, the first half of this chapter took 3 times as long as the second half, lol. Chapter 20, Greatest of All Waifu. Inside the hotel of a nearby town inside the Land of Water, a pair of peculiar-looking male figures attracted the attention of the residents. A young man was sitting beside what seemed to be a little beggar. Said little beggar was stuffing steamed buns into his small mouth. Nom, nom, nom. Roblox. Maybe because he was too quickly his face was red and he started slapping his chest as he choked on his food. The young man beside him handed a glass of milk over. The little guy gulped the milk down and let out a sigh of relief. Then he looked at the young man sitting beside him and blushed slightly in embarrassment. Thank you. My name's Hachiro. Hachiro didn't tell him his surname, although he wasn't afraid of anyone from Kumogakure finding out about his presence. It would make it much harder to gather information and roam about freely in the Land of Water. It was better to keep it a secret, it would only bring trouble to those who knew about it, anyway. The Raiden clan name could be used as a deterrence on a much smaller scale than the name Uchiha Madara. If the real Uchiha Madara was attempting to take over the mist, then he would have fled back to Kumogakure with no thoughts of returning. It wasn't that the name that held some sort of power, but Madara Uchiha was pretty much the ghost of calamity. Whatever he was involved with ended in disaster most of the time. Obito, who ran around pretending to be Madara Uchiha, managed to deceive Nagato and Itachi Uchiha. Although, it was mostly because of how cracked Kamui was. Later, after the Shinobi Alliance found out how his Mangekyo ability worked, Kakashi beat him half to death. Without Kamui, Obito's strength was at most that of low-level Kage. Haku, my name is Haku. Hachiro's expression didn't change, he said. Let's take a shower, we both stink. In a nearby bathhouse. Could you please stop staring at me? Haku's face was flushed as he held onto his towel in embarrassment. We're both men, what are you doing? Hachiro stretched his hand out and tore off the white towel around his waist and threw it into the air. It fluttered in the air for a few seconds before drifting off on top of the water. The climate is humid. Too humid. He stretched as he sank in the bath. Nizan. Do you know me from somewhere? Haku asked timidly. He didn't feel like this was their first time meeting for some reason. Of course, you were the waifu of. Never mind. No, not really. Hachiro picked up the towel that was floating in the water, and threw it off to the side. He rolled his eyes at his own thoughts. Damn it. It's all their fault I've got these kind of ideas in my head. If this was one of those novels, then this is the part where we start playing with knives. He shivered and glanced at Haku again. Thank God, he was still a kid. He could just imagine the Naruto's expression when he finds out his wife is bigger than him. Haku started blushing again when he saw Hachiro looking at him again. Okay, nothing happened. After Hachiro began re-embarking on his journey through the Land of Water again, this time he had a young companion with him. After Haku had put on a white t-shirt and black traveler jeans, his longer hair made him seem like an underage loli. Looking at this feminine-looking kid in front of him, Hachiro rubbed his chin. He had thought about cutting off some of his hair, but after considering it, he chose to leave it be. It was funny in the original when Naruto mistook Haku for a girl. He let out a chuckle as he thought that traps weren't all that bad. Mr. Hachiro, what's wrong? Noticing that he had a weird expression, Haku couldn't help but ask. Nothing of importance, let's go. Hachiro raised his hand and pointed to the main road he was traveling down before he got sidetracked. Haku responded cautiously. Since the Mizukage had started reforming the mist, anyone with a special bloodline was facing discrimination. The life of everyone in Kumogakure was at risk, even more so, for the remaining descendants of clans. Other citizens were afraid of losing their lives for sheltering anyone their leader wanted dead. Haku's mother had hid her bloodline heritage when she married his father. Unfortunately, one day, he accidentally used ice release when his father was trying to teach him water jutsu. In a moment of horror, his father summoned the rest of the villagers to kill him and his mother. After seeing his mother dying, he lost control and slaughtered his father along with the rest of the villagers in rage. He was still feeling anxious and scared from that single life-changing event. Chapter 21, Hozuki Clan Exterminated. Haku did not bring much inconvenience to Hachiro and his journey. Haku didn't know much about the Land of Water, which could be attributed to him being limited to his small village. If he hadn't heard from Hachiro that he was from the Yuki clan, he wouldn't have even known the reason he was being persecuted. After all, his mother seemed more interested in bringing the secrets of his heritage to the grave. After finding a few more villages, they tried to eavesdrop and inquire about more information about what was going on in the Land of Water and Kumogakure. It seemed like Obito had gained control over the Mizukage several years ago, as the shinobi from the Bloodline clans had been dying due to ambushes from other villages or mysteriously disappearing when they went out on missions. Haku's mother probably escaped at the earliest signs. By the way, wasn't Obito only around 13 or 14 years old when he first started hunting down the clans? He's crazy passionate about their extinction. Well, considering the mist was the reason Rin Nohara died, he probably viewed it as some form of revenge. Haku is likely to be the only descendant of the Yuki clan still alive. The Hozuki and Kagaya clans had been expelled from the mist less than a year ago. Hey! Did you hear about the mist shinobi attacking the Hozuki clan last night? At the entrance of an small inn, a group of vendors gathered together to discuss the recent news. Who do you think will win? The mist shinobi, of course. No matter how you look at it, one clan can't resist the attack of a major shinobi village. I guess you're right. But isn't the Mizukage crazy? The Hozuki clan has been famous since the Warring States era, and the second Mizukage himself was from the Hozuki clan. That guy is completely mad, no one can guess what he wants to do. With the Yuki clan gone, the Hozuki under attack, the Kagaya clan is next. What the vendors did not notice was that one teenager sitting on a table inside the inn was listening to their conversations. After gleaming as much information as he could get from the discussion, he stood up and went upstairs with a small figure behind him acting as his shadow. A few days later, on the land in the south of the Land of Water. This was the main battlefield between Kumogakure and the Hozuki clan. Even though the Hozuki clan's elementalization Kekkei Genkai allowed them to negate most physical and water attacks, it also made them weaker to lightning ninjutsu. The main problem that they were having was the overwhelming numbers of mist shinobi that numbered in the thousands. In a desolate village that had been built after the Mizukage drove the Hozuki clan away. What a pity for one of the greatest prodigies in the world to die like this. He crouched in front of a corpse and muttered to himself. A well-known prodigy in the mist and potentially the only one capable of wielding all 7 swords of the mist with great mastery. Mangetsu Hozuki. Looking at his body, which was void of wounds, he concluded, this genius had most likely died from chakra exhaustion. Kisame maybe. Haku ran up to him and reported. Mr. Hachiro, I just checked all the houses. I don't think there are any survivors. So, I won't be able to find anyone with the Hozuki bloodline. He muttered to himself with a little annoyance. Heh. Oh well, better luck next time, I suppose. After mingling with Cloud Shinobi for 18 years, his personality ended up being affected a little. In his previous life, he was more of an introvert, but now, he had gotten a taste of the freedom and power that comes with being a shinobi. When we're on the topic of freedom and power, doesn't that sound like One Piece pirates? I could totally be the ninja version of Whitebeard. Only difference being, I adopt both daughters and sons. Gender equality. Wait, what would Hinata say if I adopted someone else? Just imagining her little face all puffed up made him retract his previous idea. Kumogakure continued to cleanse the world of blood belonging to Kagaya's descendants. The Yuki clan had been annihilated with only one survivor. The Hozuki clan had been exterminated like a bunch of rats, leaving only the battle-hungry Kagaya clan. The Kagaya clan was just as grumpy and muscle-headed as the Fourth Raikage, and that was saying something. Using their guerrilla-level intelligence, they decided the best idea was to attack instead of fleeing. Their end was predictable, as they numbered much less than the Hozuki clan. And because of the illness that came from their bloodline, everyone was sick to varying degrees. They fared even worse in front of the shinobi army from the mist, that kept throwing themselves towards the clan, relying on their immense number. These successors of the dead Bone Pulse, who inherited Kagaya's name and blood, seemed so vulnerable. Coral Palm. The fourth Mizukage, Yagura, personally showed up with a blood-red, animalistic coat hugging his body. He leapt towards the Kagaya's patriarch and hit him with his palm, causing coral to form and swallow him alive. Moments later, Yagura left after making sure he had killed the patriarch, leaving the small fry for his minions. And just like that, the Kagaya clan, one of the final remaining clans possessing a bloodline limit, disappeared in all but shinobi history. Yagura, who was leaving, suddenly stopped as he noticed a child that seemed much less bloodthirsty than his clanmates ran from the battlefield. Note: my keyboard broke. Chapter 22, Iron Sand. Like Killer Bee and Yujito, Yagura also had full control over Isabu, the three-tailed beast. The three of them were what were known as perfect Jinchuriki. The ominous-looking coat surrounding his body quickly faded, returning him to his normal human form. After analyzing the child that was running in terror, he looked at the masked Mistumbu before ordering them. Kill him. When the several Mistumbu heard his words, they used the mist body flicker technique to catch up. Pant. 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 In the rainforest, Kimimaro ran for what felt like an eternity. Whenever he wanted to stop running and rest, scenes of people from his clan dying filled up his vision. His legs were sore and weak, but he forced them to continue moving. Although, he was now 6 years old and had 3 years to train to be a shinobi, he would never be able to outrun elite ninja that had at least 15 years of training. Soon, the Umbu caught up. As they leapt from branch to branch, the leader said coldly, "Lord Fourth has ordered us to kill this remnant of the Kagaya clan. Spring, Droplet, eliminate him." Immediately upon hearing the squad leader's commands, they split up and surrounded their target. Water-style Water Dragon Bomb Technique. Lightning-style Lightning Fang Technique. Kimimaro turned to see the water dragon and sharp electric current chase him. He couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Maybe dying here isn't all that bad. At least I won't have to suffer. Just when the ninjutsu was about to hit him, he heard two shouts. Hidden Snake Shadow Hands. 30 million volts Thunderbird. All of a sudden, an eagle-shaped mass of electricity intercepted the smaller bolts of lightning and mass of water before dissipating. Several snakes appeared from the shadows and bite the attacking Umbu on the neck. They fell from the trees onto the ground. What? Not only Kimimaro, but the spectating squad mates of the now dead corpses were surprised and frightened at the sudden turn of events. After a few seconds, everyone reacted and spun around to look at the source of the noise. Two figures walked out from behind two older trees. What a coincidence! I didn't expect to see you here in the land of water, Hachiro-kun. I would like to say the same, but considering you're the world's leading human trafficker, it's obvious in hindsight. When Kimimaro saw these two figures, he felt nervous. He saw that behind them was one girl and one boy. Everyone, look out. Be careful, these two are S-rank shinobi. The leader of the Umbu squad lost his composure and yelled. The other Umbu became tense and started sweating like waterfalls. Why are such dangerous shinobi appearing here for? It seems we're both here for similar reasons. How about we deal with these loudmouths first before this situation gets more chaotic? Orochimaru laughed strangely. Hachiro opened his palm and faint traces of electricity jumped about. Zap. Puff. 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 Unknowingly, several objects had pierced the Umbu's bodies, they only reacted after feeling an intense pain. Looking down, they noticed these pure black constructs were shaped like spears and whips. Cough. What kind of technique is this? Soon, the remaining mist shinobi fell to the ground with confusion lingering on their faces. Thud. 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 The third Kazekage's, Iron Sand. Orochimaru's pupils dilated. Although, he had never saw the third Kazekage in action. He had heard from others, how he had a defense tougher than any other Kage. The third Kazekage was even called the strongest Kazekage because no one wanted to fight him head-on. In a direct fight, aside from lightning and water ninjutsu, it was impossible to break his defense. His iron sand could crush anyone beneath it, making it a nightmare for anyone that tries to engage in close combat. Genjutsu was his only weakness, and even then it was hard to exploit, if he coated himself in sand armor. But Hachiro was also manipulating iron sand, and he definitely didn't come from Sunagakure. A lightning jutsu, maybe. I don't know how it functions or what limitations and weaknesses it has. The several objects made from iron sand abruptly fell to the ground as if it had been sapped of all supernatural power. Hachiro cast his eyes on the silver-haired boy, behind Orochimaru, who was looking in awe of his jutsu. So is this, Suigetsu? Sure enough, Orochimaru had taken him away in advance. He didn't feel much frustration as he could see that this kid had no loyalty to Orochimaru. In all likelihood, he's taking refuge with Orochimaru to avoid the Mist Shinobi's hunt. He could potentially recruit him into the cloud, if his partnership with the snake went south. I want him. Hachiro cracked his neck and stated with a smile. Hee hee. Orochimaru laughed strangely once again, and turned around leaving with Suigetsu. He knew that he was being threatened by the cloud as a whole. If both Konoha and Kimo started chasing him down, then even he would have a hard time surviving. He could still benefit from his partnership with the cloud, and he wasn't ready to cause himself so much unnecessary trouble for one bloodline that may or may not help in his experiments. Note, I realize that a lot of dirty-minded people think that the MC is gonna raise Hinata as his wife after reading the title. Any suggestions on what I should change it to? Chapter 23, Haku's Death. After Orochimaru and Suigetsu had left, only Hachiro and the last two successors of the Kagaya and Yuki clan were left on the scene. Hachiro turned to look at Kimimaro, who was struggling to hold on to his conscientious, and asked, "So, do you really want to die?" Kimimaro pursed his lips and showed a confused expression. "What's the purpose of being alive? I can't find any meaning in my existence. If there is no meaning in my existence, then even if I'm alive, I'm no different from dead." He lowered his head slightly, and muttered to himself in disarray. Hachiro rolled his eyes. "Who are you?" "Itachi. You're a 6-year-old child, for goodness sake, stop worrying." Well, I guess this much was to be expected, considering his clan is full of bloodthirsty maniacs. According to the original series, in all likelihood, his parents also died prematurely due to the illness that comes with their Kekkei Genkai. Since childhood, he was trained as a humanoid weapon because of his talent. Under those circumstances, it's not surprising if he loses hope in life. Is that so? Well, try to find a way to survive for now. You can look for answers later. He raised his head to the sky and said, "Different people would say they have different reasons for living. There is no absolute answer. It could be simply because they want to have fun, or they think it's meaningful to carry out a certain task. Some people that find living a chore, carry on, simply for the sake of their family and loved ones." Kimimaro's desolate eyes, suddenly, lit up. He whispered to himself, "Living for someone." A few days later, in the ruins of a destroyed town, located inside the Land of Water, Hachiro called over Haku's and Kimimaro's attention. "There is nothing else we need in the Land of Water, so grab everything you have with you. We're returning to Kumogakure." The Land of Lightning. Kimimaro raised his eyebrows suspiciously. Since birth, he had never wandered outside of his clan compound. The only other place he had gone to was the battlefields, when the Kagaya clan went to war. "We're going back. Why did Mr. Hachiro come to the Land of Water, anyway?" Haku tilted his head and asked curiously. "Oh, because dash." He responded before cutting himself off. He clenched his hand as a burst of lightning formed an irregular sword-shaped outline. His body flickered before cutting Haku's body in two diagonally. Kimimaro was scared as he jumped back subconsciously and shouted, "Mr. Hachiro, why?" But as if to answer his query, Haku rapidly turned white and the spilt blood turned to mud on the ground. Even after being fatally wounded, the white body kept squirming along the ground like a caterpillar. The mass of pure white earth for a body slowly lost its energy as it smiled. "How unexpected, you don't have the Uzumaki sensing techniques or the Uchiha's Sharingan. So what gave me away?" The white Zetsu, which was divided in two, struggled to look at Hachiro as it asked a question. "First, Haku is too scared to ask me questions. He would have tried to pack in a hurry, to make sure I don't leave without him." He stepped on the white Zetsu that was listening intently, and started to guide lightning chakra from the sky. "Second, you overestimate your ability to transform." Boom. In an instant, thousands of thunderbolts rained down upon the village, razing it to the ground. In the newly formed crater, there was 4 people left. Hachiro and Kimimaro stood in the center. Opposite them was a man dressed in a black robe and gloves standing behind Haku, pinching his throat. What he wore was not the iconic swirly orange mask, but a white spiral mask, created by White Zetsu. The Sharingan that was exposed was enough for Hachiro to be certain of who this man was. Uchiha Obito. Release him. Staring at the eye hole in his mask, he calmly spat out 2 words. Why is a Kage-level ninja from the Kumogakure doing here? To kidnap a few children with Kirigakure bloodlines. Obito spoke in his deep Madara voice. The land of water was under the Akatsuki's eyes. Using the rain tiger at will technique, they had been carefully observing these strong intruders for the duration of their stay. They were thinking about recruiting Orochimaru into the Akatsuki. As an S-rank rebel from Konoha, he was more than qualified enough. However, they didn't know what to do about Hachiro. Originally, they didn't want any of the major powers to know about what was happening in the land of water, as that could potentially reveal their existence. But Hachiro was much stronger and might be able to defeat Akatsuki as they were still in the growth period. I don't like repeating myself. Hachiro ignored Obito's question as he took on a much colder tone. Don't be so arrogant, Hachiro Raiden. Seeing that his opponent didn't intend to answer his question, Obito sunk even further into his role of Uchiha Madara. Arrogant? What are you talking about? Hachiro mocked and said. You coward, do you really think you're strong? Note, keyboard is working again, laughing face. Chapter 24, Attracting Unwanted Attention. You coward, do you really think you're strong? The moment his voice fell, Obito felt chakra surge around him. Thanks to the reaction speed enhancement provided by his Mangekyo, he managed to pull off a Kamui. Immediately afterward, countless black needles came out of the ground and tried to turn him into a hedgehog. Haku, run! Instinctively out of fear, he ran back towards Hachiro without even getting a proper moment to process what was happening. As soon as he took a step forward, he was surprised to find he walked through the masked man's hand. He hurried to the side of Hachiro, feeling guilty. I'm sorry, Mr. Hachiro. It's all right, most ninja don't stand a chance against these guys. Just leave him to me. He smiled, trying to comfort the kid. The guilt on Haku's face didn't fade at all. Obito, who had retreated a fair distance, materialized his body again. The needles of iron sand returned underground, spreading out to go for another surprise attack. Do you know me? Just now, when he had his hand on the little ice devil's throat, his opponent acted as if he already knew how his ability worked. When he went intangible to dodge that attack, how could his opponent know that he couldn't launch an attack of his own? Although he was wearing a mask, it was easy to see how angry Obito was. Kamui was his strongest ability that he had rarely used, unless he was confident he could defeat his opponent. The only time he had relied on it to win an unsure fight was with his sensei, the Fourth Hokage. Hachiro laughed mockingly. What? I've only seen through one of your abilities and you're crying already. Hey, now that I think about it. That Sharingan of yours seems very familiar. Though it was a silver-haired shinobi, I fought during the war that had it. He squinted his eyes, irritating Obito by reminding him of some old, painful memories. Shut up. He was stuck in a bad spot. If his real identity was revealed to the rest of the Akatsuki, then it would become much harder for him to use them in the future. Fire style fire lily technique. Obito spat out mini meteors made purely from flame. It looks pretty cool, but really it's just a phoenix sage fire with extended range. He gave Obito a look of COMT and taunted him. Wow, you really are nothing without that Sharingan. At least that other guy had some pretty cool jutsu. 100 million volts, electrical discharge. Hachiro extended his right hand as it partially became lightning and willed the lightning to spread out in front of him. In an instant, a portion rushed towards the angry Obito and his fire jutsu. Boom. Elsewhere. In the distance, a series of shocking thunder pillars could be seen piercing the clouds in the sky. A beautiful woman with waist-length auburn hair, gorgeous facial features and a slender figure was blankly staring at the blue beam. An hour ago, she had been making a getaway from the pursuit of an Umbu unit. She didn't expect to see such amazing scenery during her escape. Are we dead? Kimimaro hesitated to open his eyes, but when he did he saw that half of the town in front of him had disappeared. Zap. Hachiro suddenly appeared in front of him covered in electricity. He escaped. At least, he won't bother us for a while. Really? Haku looked at him in awe and asked. He's pretty shaken up that I know about his intangibility trick. His other abilities aren't all that great against me. Hachiro explained to him. In terms of pure combat power, Obito wasn't a match for Nagato. He was relying on deception to manipulate him, otherwise he wouldn't be able to move about as he wished. If 3 years ago, Minato Namikaze understood how Kamui worked beforehand, he would have won in a few exchanges. If it wasn't for how overpowered Kamui was then, he could have been defeated instantly. Without Kamui, he was a jonin at best. Minato had slaughtered around 100 Iwagakure jonin in one battle before. Did you guys see who did this? A young woman's voice rang out from nearby. Another enemy. Kimimaro and Haku suddenly jumped in front of Hachiro. Kimimaro pulled out a bone from his shoulder to use as a knife, while Haku used his poor mastery of ice release to create a deformed mirror. Hachiro patted their shoulders and said speechlessly. I can handle this myself. Try not to recklessly use your Kekkei Genkai, it could cause us a lot of trouble. Chapter 25, What are you going to do, Sumi? Kimimaro and Haku showed some embarrassment after realizing they wouldn't be much help. A moment ago, their bodies had acted before their brains could think. In retrospect, since meeting Hachiro, he had been the one dealing with all the enemies so far. You two are the descendants of the Kagaya and Yuki clan. But they were already wiped out. When she saw Kimimaro and Haku use their respective Kekkei Genkai, her eyes were filled with surprise. The reason why she had escaped was because she had heard what had happened to the other clans with bloodline limits. Although every member of her clan had been incredibly talented and strong, they were small in number, and after the stronger members went missing on missions, they were weak when the Mistumbu came and slaughtered everyone in their compound. Other than her and a few others, everyone had died. With the destruction of the 3 biggest clans and some smaller ones, only now did the people of Kirigakure realize that the Mizukage wanted to erase bloodline limits from Kirigakure completely. Most people, including her, thought that their bloodlines were gone forever. But here she was seeing 2 children use the dead bone pulse and ice release. Unfortunately, she knew who the men behind them was. In the Third Ninja War, despite the mist and cloud not coming into full-scale conflict, they knew the shinobi belonging to each side well. Despite meeting each other for the first time, they both knew who the other was. Although Hachiro hadn't seen her as such a young woman, he knew who she was. The future 5th Mizukage, Terumi Mei. Hachiro patted his head without knowing it, as he couldn't help but ponder on the feasibility of grabbing her and throwing her into Kumogakure. Before coming, he had only been thinking about Haku, Suigetsu, and Kimimaro. But Terumi Mei had the strongest bloodline out of them all. Are you the strongest lightning-style user from Kumogakure? She hesitated to guess. She had participated in the war but had only fought against ninja from Konoha. She was a younger member of her clan, so she was protected by the elders of her clan and didn't have to worry about the bigger picture as a whole. She only really knew about the other battlefields from rumors. Hachiro didn't answer her question but said, There are a lot of ninja coming over here. His excessive use of lightning to scare off the masked annoyance had attracted the mist's attention. No wonder, with how loud that last discharge was, it was no surprise. They would have to be blind and deaf to have missed it. After getting rid of the mist shinobi's pursuit, Hachiro pulled out his shinobi protector to answer her. Even if Haku and Kimimaro knew he was from another country, they wouldn't likely care since he was the only one they trusted. Sure enough, I was right. It's you. Terumi Mei sighed in dismay. The strongest lightning-style ninja in the shinobi world. Recalling his nickname, he earned from the battlefield, her mind came back to the pillar of thunder that shook the sky earlier and thought. How about we remove the lightning style and go with the strongest ninja in the shinobi world? Sounds much better and realistic. Yeah. Noticing that she was creeping behind the 3 of them like a ghost, Hachiro asked with a puzzled expression. Why are you following us? She didn't know how to respond. Since she had awakened both the lava release and boil release of her clan, she was an extremely rare talent and naturally high on the 4th Mizukage's hit list. She herself wasn't all that sure where to go right now. Plus, she needed the 2 little guys hanging over Hachiro's shoulders. She was just subconsciously following along. We're heading to the land of lightning. If it's okay with you, let's separate here. Hachiro waved her off with a disgusted expression, saying, Go away, don't bother me. her face flushed with anger. What's wrong with you? I'm a beauty in need of saving, and you're just telling me to wait and die here. Although angry, she also noticed where he was going and pointed to Kimimaro and Haku in worry, asking. You're taking them to Kumogakure? Yeah, what? Are you going to go to your Mizukage and sue me? Hachiro seemed to be blatantly bullying her as her face turned white and red from exasperation. In her opinion, taking the two remaining heirs of the dead Bone Pulse and Ice Release was the same as robbing Kirigakure of their future. But now, someone wanted to take them away. It was like kicking the mist down. They already had enough problems with an insane Mizukage that was going around killing whoever he liked with no regard for the well-being of the village. If Kimimaro and Haku were to get married in the future, even if she were to argue that they belonged to Kirigakure, she would be fighting a losing battle. No way. You can't take them. Her anger erupted and she got into a fighting posture. She looked a lot different from the marriage-mad Mizukage in the future and even a bit naive that she stood a chance against him. He smiled and said, What are trying to do? These two children are the future of Kirigakure. I will never allow you to take them away. She scolded him as her figure flashed and she rushed towards Hachiro making seals in her hands. However, as if played on repeat, a picture from earlier showed up again. Two immature children raised a bone knife and an ice blade blocking her from reaching him. Even though they were dangling over Hachiro's shoulders, they tried their best to protect him. Chapter 26, Make Kumogakure Great Again. You dash. Terumi Mei, who was close to releasing a lava release ninjutsu, stopped her movements at the last second. Seeing how hostile Kimimaro and Haku were towards her, she felt an unspeakable bitterness in her heart. They were originally from Kirigakure and should be in the same camp as her. He who wins the hearts of the people wins the world. Hachiro raised his head slightly, and uttered a quote from who knows where. Although he hates Hiruzen's will of fire rubbish. But he has to admit that the old fox is unrivaled when it comes to winning people's hearts. He managed to win over the citizens of Konoha, Minato, Kakashi, and Naruto. Seeing that Terumi Mei no longer had any intention of attacking, Haku and Kimimaro lowered their weapons. They still kept their vigilance though. How about you come with us? All of a sudden, Hachiro for some reason stretched out his hand and invited her. Terumi Mei, who was immersing in her sorrow, was reawakened to the land of the living by Hachiro's question. She looked at him incredulously. She raised her finger and pointed at herself as if to confirm he was talking about her. Kirigakure is completely under the Mizukage's control. Are you going to stay here and face endless pursuit from your own village? He asked her. In the original work, there was not much description on what happened during the Bloody Mist period other than the clans dying out. However, there was plenty of speculations on what happened. What was certain was that the Akatsuki killed him once. They needed to get Isabu, the three-tailed beast. Terumi Mei would then become the Mizukage of Kirigakure and free the mist from their dark period of history. Although, the only reason she got the opportunity to free them was that Akatsuki had already developed enough that they didn't need Kirigakure at that time. They didn't want to bother fighting with the mist and incur pointless losses. I will never give up on the village. Just wait, I will find a way to convince Lord Fourth. She clenched her hands into fists. Whoa, how fierce and scary, sarcasm. Well then, faced with Yugura, who has the majority of the mist's combat power at his disposal and the power of a tailed beast, what chance do you think you have? He raised a vital question. She stomped on the ground, still feeling angry and stubborn. She was acting like a cat with her tail stepped on. How about you cooperate when we try to take Konoha down? I'll try to get Kumogakure to help you get rid of Yugura since it would benefit us both. He smiled. She opened her mouth slightly shocked and speechless. Take down Konoha. As in the village, hidden in the leaves. That's a major village. Is this man crazy? Although, the land of water was isolated from the rest of the world currently, making it difficult to obtain information from the outside world. The rumors that the Fourth Hokage and the defection of Orochimaru, one of the Sannin, had spread like wildfire months ago. She had took them for a grain of salt. She had no means of verifying the information, but could it be true? Had Konoha fallen into a state of decline? Then, when will it happen? She asked, feeling a myriad of emotions. Well, it will probably take place in 10 years. Have to make sure Konoha is in its weakest state. Hachiro pretended to think. In 10 years' time, Obito will have squeezed most of Kirigakure's value out, and give the mist the freedom they want. Terumi Mei didn't need to know that the Akatsuki would just abandon their control over the mist, and he could use that to his advantage. 10 years. She lowered her head and muttered those 2 words quietly. After a moment of consideration, determination appeared on her face, and she resolutely exclaimed. Okay. But you must promise to abide by the agreement. I haven't hit the age where I forget what I say. He stretched out his arm and gave a fist to her. She tilted her head to convey her puzzlement. It's a cloud custom. It's kind of like a action to show you, promise to fulfill a deal. He gave a happy smile. Oh, okay, got it. She felt slightly awkward before hitting his fist. It had almost been 52 years since Konoha's establishment. The 3 strongest clans in Kirigakure had been wiped out. The Yuki, Hozuki, and Kagaya clans had been slaughtered one after the other. This caused Kirigakure to earn a title with some notoriety, the Bloody Mist. Now, not just the people from Kirigakure but everyone else in the world, though the 4th Mizukage, Yagura, was crazy. Kirigakure was becoming chaotic due to the death of so many ninjas and the fear of who was next to be killed. Many shinobi villages discussed on whether they should attack Kirigakure while it was in chaos. The 5 major villages dropped the idea. However, many of the smaller villages that wanted to take Kirigakure's position as a major village stirred up even more trouble. The 5 major villages continued to spectate from the side as they didn't feel like going to war again so soon. Additionally, Kirigakure was an island halfway across the sea, making an attack time-consuming and resource expensive. Sunagakure didn't even bother considering an attack as they were too poor to fight an extended battle and had other plans they wanted to realize. Not one village had noticed that Kumogakure had smuggled the 2 last survivors of the 3 clans of the Mist. And on that note, Hachiro officially launched his Make Kumogakure Great Again project. Chapter 27, Where there is light, there is also darkness. The ninja village, hidden in the clouds. By the time Hachiro had returned, it was the new year. Don't you think you should explain yourself? Hachiro's first stop after making it back to the cloud was the Raikage's office. He didn't expect to meet Samui, who was holding onto Hinata's little hand as soon as he opened the door. When she saw Terumi Mei following behind Hachiro, she was ready to flip him into next week. You haven't even dealt with your other lady problem, and now you're making more. She looked at this woman's practically perfect facial features and figure that was challenging her own. She looked down. Humph, I'm still bigger, by about 3 centimeters. Seeing Samui, he felt like he had been caught cheating. He wanted to explain himself, but right now, he was feeling even more terrified than when he was questioned by his uncle, the Third Raikage. Wait, that's not right. I haven't done anything wrong. Explanation. Didn't I tell you, I was on a mission? He stared fearlessly at her blue eyes. This little devil with the weird-looking eyebrows is Kagaya Kimimaro. He's the last successor to the Kagaya clan's dead bone pulse. And this female-looking boy is Haku. He has the Yuki clan's ice release. Hachiro picked up Hinata, who was tugging his leg, and introduced the newcomers to the Cloud Shinobi. Oh, and this miss is the future 5th Mizukage, Terumi Mei. She has a double bloodline limit. Terumi Mei, who was feeling extremely uncomfortable under the glaring eyes of Samui, took the initiative to start a conversation. I have established a cooperative relationship with Mr. Hachiro. During my stay in Kumogakure, I will act according to the instructions of Lord Raikage and Mr. Hachiro, provided that I am not requested to act against the Land of Water. After helping your village successfully defeat Konoha, I hope you help me by sending troops to defeat Yagura, so that the mist can get back on track. In her view, cooperating with the shinobi from the cloud was a very risky move. She couldn't ensure that they would do what they promised after she had helped them. But unfortunately, she had no other choice. Future 5th Mizukage. Hearing that, the eyes of the 4th Raikage lit up. Previously, they had planned to plant the Hyuga girl into the next Hokage. If we managed to plant this woman as the Mizukage, then we would dominate all over the board. Although, she seems harder to control given she isn't as young as Hinata. The Raikage stood up and shouted honorably. I, the 4th Raikage, have never went against a promise in my life. Mabui, take Miss Terumi and arrange the best accommodation for her. He barked orders out at Mabui with vigor. Yes, sir. After responding, she walked over to Mei's side and said, Miss Terumi, please follow me. Okay. In response, Terumi Mei sighed and wondered. Is there no other option? When Mabui walked past Hachiro, she whispered to him. Sorry. Under Hachiro's suspicious gaze, she walked out of the office. Sorry. Sorry for what? Samui, could you take these 2 children to the orphanage where the war orphans live? By the way, could you use your name to help go through the admission procedures for the Ninja Academy? The Raikage turned to Samui. She nodded without a word and raised her hand to motion Kimimaro and Haku to follow her out. When walking past Hachiro, she yanked Hinata from him. She gave him a fierce look that said, just wait until we get home. Hachiro resisted the urge to roll his eyes, as he thought he would have to sleep on the coach tonight. With that, now only, Hachiro, the Raikage and Tutai were left in the office. The Raikage asked curiously. Do you really think that woman could become Mizukage? Well, what do you think? Hachiro raised his eyebrows and sent back the question. Hachiro-sama, personally, I don't think this is a good trade. We are adding a single jonin to our forces when we attack Konoha, and in return we will have to expend hundreds just to hold down the Mizukage's guards. We will also have to mobilize a Kage-level ninja to fight Yugura. I think it would be best to get rid of her after using her. Although, the Cloud were straightforward and friendly most of the time. They weren't foolish enough to trust a shinobi from an enemy village. Shinobi were known for how cunning and ruthless they were. And the large majority of the Cloud were the same. As for the Raikage statement about honesty and keeping promises, that was just him taking lessons from Hiruzen and his B*****************. For a shinobi the results were what mattered. No one cared about the process it took to achieve those results, they were irrelevant. Unless it was against the village law, then you could do whatever you wanted on a mission. Terumi Mei only had the strength of an elite jonin even with her 2 bloodline limits. How much help could she be? She certainly wasn't worth the large amount of military power they would have to lose to kill the Mizukage. Therefore, being realistic, the Fourth Raikage and Tutai deemed it best to resort to less savory means. No shinobi village did not pull trickery in the shadows. Each village had a dark side, hidden behind the light. Chapter 28, Are You a Raikage or a Pimp? After listening to the Tutai's proposal, the office fell into silence. His suggestion was dark. But it was the best plan from a cold and calculating perspective. If they wanted to kill the Mizukage, they would have to send out at least a battalion of shinobi. And if something goes against the plan, then there was a small chance they would be wiped out. If they were paying that risk for a Kage-level ninja, then at least they could attack Konogakure with a peace of mind. But currently they were on the losing end of this deal, so it was better to just pretend it never existed in the first place. Hachiro had suggested the deal because he knew what would happen in the future, but he couldn't tell the Raikage and Tutai that they didn't really need to send troops over in 10 years' time. If he did, then he would be worried about whether he was sick in the head. After half a minute of the depreciating silence continuing, he spoke up. From what I've seen so far, she is an honest and trustworthy person. If she does end up promoted as Mizukage, then we can establish a solid trading alliance for the next few decades to come. In terms of long-term profit, I think this is a good deal. He wasn't really lying. In the anime and real life, she had proven herself to be quite in line with the Cloud's style of doing things. The Fourth Raikage and Tutai obviously didn't agree with him, for good reason. The reasons he had given weren't all that convincing. How can you tell if someone is trustworthy so easily? You must have a lot of unwarranted confidence, if you believe you know a person well after a month. Hachiro-sama, you're not trying court her. Are you? Tutai asked dubiously. What? Hachiro burst out in surprise. What the hell is wrong with you? Do you think I want to every female I see? Well, it's just I'm trying to figure out why you're behaving so strangely ever since this deal has been mentioned. So, am I right? Tutai said suspiciously. Go climb a mountain and slip. His face was dark as he restrained himself from cursing. He admitted that Terumi Mei was beautiful and he had a few thoughts earlier during their trip. But damn it, I am not about to compromise the Cloud's interests for someone I barely know. Do I look like someone who thinks with their lower body? Actually, that might be a good way to solve this. The Raikage interjected suddenly. Cousin, how about you keep the woman in our village and make sure she gives you a cub or two? Then it's impossible for her to betray us, right? Hachiro. After being speechless for a moment, he exclaimed. How about you retire early and become a pimp? Previously, he had used his secretary in the bet last time, and now he was trying to use marriage to tie another woman to Kumogakure. He could become a professional in no time. Maybe, this was your real calling in life all along. Hachiro-sama, the Raikage is right. If you marry and have a few children, then we won't have to worry about her trying anything funny. Well then, thank you for your great wisdom, geniuses. He didn't want to linger here anymore with his bad mood. I'll decide how things go in my own life. Please don't intervene, in my life or Mei's. Bang. After the door was closed with a thud, the Raikage picked up the documents that contained basic information on Haku and Kimimaro and joked. Haha, it's so funny seeing that kid get angry. He hasn't even sorted out Mabui's business and now he's going to have more problems. After leaving the Raikage's office, he felt something strange was being said about him. He opened his perception to the maximum, intent on finding out what it was. But after scanning the village, he couldn't help but feel pretty disturbed by what the Raikage and Tutai had said. He looked up at the highest hotel in the village before withdrawing his gaze and going home. In the hotel room, Terumi Mei had just settled and jumped onto the bed after being led by Mabui. Note, a lot of Chinese references I just straight up deleted. Should I leave them there or not? I think some people prefer them for the extra word count, not sure. Chapter 29, The House Key. Oh, hi Dad. I'm going to go see teacher and practice. See you. After saying goodbye to Samui and Hachiro, Hinata ran off towards the island turtle that was meant only for high-ranking ninja. While watching her run off, Hachiro smiled in satisfaction and cast a glance at the hidden Umbu slowly trailing behind her. Although she had only started her training 2 months ago, she was already a small celebrity. When he was away, Samui had requested for a Jonin teacher and one of his cousin's assistants to post an Umbu mission to guard Hinata when she was roaming about the village with no supervision. Although his perception covered the entire village, it was taxing processing everything that happened in its range and humanly impossible to keep up all the time. The saying, better safe than sorry, existed for a reason, and he wasn't taking any chances with his daughter. Now that she can run about, she spends all her time outdoors training or just playing with other children. He entered his house again and found Samui stretching her shoulders. Those weapons on her chest had leveled up recently. She was beginning her sore shoulders mantra from the original book. He walked over silently and helped her by lifting the weight on her chest. You. What are you doing? Let go. Samui was taken back, and turned her head around to look at Hachiro with wide eyes. Aren't these too heavy? I'm holding them for you. Halfway through his sentence, he started breathing into her ear and whispered. Come on baby, it's been a month. Samui's face flushed slightly red, but then she remembered about Mabui and Mei, and thought he was getting himself carried away lately. Go away. Go find Mabui and that mist woman. Oh, is that fine with you? You. Samui widened her eyes even more as she started feeling angry. She searched through her small vocabulary of curse words only to find her lips blocked. After resisting for a while, she gave up and went with the flow. Around 2 hours after Hinata went off to train, Samui and Hachiro jumped into the pool. After they entered the water rose and ran along the tiles outside the pool. The pool was 3 meters deep, 5 meters wide and 5 meters long. Samui's beautiful features relaxed. He attempted to observe whether her double G's had reached the Boa Hancock kind of level, before getting a slap on the thigh. What are you doing? How cold? I just wanted a peek. This shinobi is so cruel. What do you have to say about that woman from the mist? Samui turned her head slightly and asked sternly. You're a ninja, you shouldn't be so angry all the time, doesn't fit your Ice Queen persona at all. He muttered to himself. He didn't really want to risk saying that out loud, otherwise he would be leaving the bathroom with a few new bruises. She's from the Terumi clan in Kirigakure. Like the other 2 boys, she has inherited the last of their clan's bloodlines. My mission was to try and benefit from the recent chaos in Kumogakure. I thought that they could bolster the Cloud's combat power in the future. It's just a mission, go complain to the Raikage instead of me. Not like I get to decide what I'm tasked with. Although, I kinda do. Not like anyone could stop me if I just said no. Okay then, what about the bet with Raikage-sama? Mabui was on the line as a prize, no. Samui confirmed. That was just a being shameless again, just like back when we were 6, he told Uncle that it was me, who was throwing lightning jutsu about his house. I'm the victim. Hachiro exclaimed with awe-inspiring self-righteousness. That's not the answer I was looking for. Samui squinted her eyes and thought about words she could use to curse him. Knock knock. Hinata's young exhausted voice could faintly be heard from the other side of the door. Daddy, Mummy, I'm back, open the door please. Hinata didn't have a key. Hachiro and Samui quickly crawled out of the pool after hearing her. Good thing they didn't give her the key or she would be seeing them naked. This is why you don't give children the key to the house. Note, so many references I don't understand, dash. Chapter 30, Kimimara's Worrying Condition. Now the new year was fast approaching. During this period the Cloud Shinobi should have originally obtained Hisashi's body. However, because of the caged bird seal they would lose the Byakugan. But now, they had gotten Hinata Hyuga, who was originally meant to be the Hyuga clan's heiress and 2 other bloodline limits. 3, if you count Terumi Mei. On a playground near the Cloud Shinobi Ninja Academy. Ice Release Icy Mist Technique. After Haku completed the last hand seal the large playground was enveloped in a white mist. It was also accompanied by a piercing chill. So cold. Whoa, is that what a Kekai Genkai is? Haku is so cute and strong. Idiot, Haku is a man. Nanny. Children of the same age as Haku were watching from the side and hugging themselves tightly. They exclaimed in shock. Dance of the Camilla. Just as the cold mist was about to wrap the entire playground in its embrace. A shadow zoomed across towards Haku, like a swallow diving for its prey. Although, it was only at the speed of a special jonin, it was impossible for any other academy student to match it. Shuttles through the mist and waving a knife, that was really a shoulder bone was Kimimaro. The crisp sound of a kunai and bone colliding rang out throughout the playground. About 5 seconds later, there was a crisp sound of a collision of weapons. All the other students stared in amazement. The icy mist gradually faded revealing the 2 who were swinging at each other like worst enemies. Haku's kunai broke from the repeated collisions, causing him to form a blade made of ice in response. It had been nearly a year since they had been brought to the mist by Hachiro. They had already integrated into the new village and stood out as prodigies and rivals. Wonderful. Their childhood in the bloody mist has caused them to grow up and mature faster than those of their age. Just proves that sometimes peace isn't the best environment. In a nearby building, the Raikage, his assistants, and some other people were spectating. I wonder where Master Hachiro found this kid. That kid has plenty bones. Uncle is very pleased. He can learn from my 8-sword style. Oh yeah, save me, I've spent 15 minutes trying to make this sound decent. Killer Bee looked on excitedly at Kimimaro, who was shooting bone bullets out of his body. Just imagining an 8-sword style with swords randomly popping out of Kimimaro's body got his blood pumping. In Kumogakure, the education system worked differently than Konoha where a retired jonin led 3 new graduated genin. A jonin could accept 1 to 3 students at a time, and it wasn't necessary for them to form a team. Kimimaro's physical condition is worrying. The medical ninja that we had checking up on him said his hereditary disease is causing his body to decline fast. According to the records, it's a miracle for a shinobi from the Kaguya family to live past 20 years of age. With 30 being the record. Hachiro sat on the sofa with crossed legs and glanced at Kimimaro, analyzing his opponent. Unlike in the original, where he was Orochimaru's subordinate, he was now a shinobi of Kumo. Meaning, it was now his problem. He was having a headache from thinking about it for the last 2 weeks. Old 8, any ideas? He cast his eyes over to Killer Bee. He froze for a moment before speaking again, but this time with 8 tails in control. Don't call me Old 8, it feels weird. In the anime, he doesn't think he has ever seen a Jinchuriki other than Killer Bee pull off a temporally exchange control with a tailed beast. Although, Naruto could probably do the same. A while ago he had the cursed thought of what if Kushina Uzumaki switched when she was doing the forbidden stuff with Minato. Wouldn't that make Minato is gay? Cough. The Eight Tails who was borrowing Killer Bee's body said to Hachiro. He has the same blood as that of a woman I know, but unfortunately, I can't give you any more information. Tisk, and the useless octopus drops the chain at the critical moment. Hachiro curled his lips as the angry Eight Tails screamed about wanting to fight the smug bastard. Killer Bee hurriedly took back control of his body. Why don't we send this kid a few wives later? Then he can give birth to a few babies before his disease takes full effect. The Fourth Raikage yelled. Hachiro was speechless. Can't you think of something other than marriage and children? When he first brought Terumi Mei back, he made the exact same proposal. Is that the only thing he can think of nowadays? Is he addicted to marrying others and forcing them to have children? Then do you have a better solution? The Raikage looked as if he was talking to an idiot. His expression really irked Hachiro. Although they might have to do just what he suggested, he didn't want to give up on Kimimaro, yet. But if it really came down to it, they might just have to cut their losses by getting him to have a few children. At least that way they can ensure the dead bone pulse, Kekkei Genkai, doesn't go extinct. He could go and pop off children like Big Mom. Speaking of which, why are you here anyway? Just to check on those two down there. Hachiro rubbed his temple and threw Kimimaro's problem to the back of his mind for now. The Fourth Raikage took out a small scroll. The old thing from Konoha sent a message saying he wanted to organize a Chunin exam with any and all villages that would like to participate. The Chunin exam. Upon hearing what it was about, his face became serious. I specified that this plan would take place during the Chunin exam. But I never specified which one. That was a major oversight. I wonder if the Konoha Crush project will take place without me in the know. That would be a massive joke. Oh well, just gotta help the brainy snake doesn't try to attack without Kumogakure or his end won't be a favorable one. Note, I'm really bloody confused about what part of this chapter meant. I'll revisit this later once I figure it out.